Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life, episode 187. Remember to say it this time, Bally. I think last time I started the episode, didn't say the episode number, and it threw me off, and I was like, why does this feel wrong to me? And then I realized...
Your brain missed a beat.
I missed a beat. I think it might be the only time I've not said the episode number at the start, so for shame...
It didn't exist then.
We're going to get to 500 episodes, Bally, and I'm going to have this stain on my record forever. The one time I didn't say the number of the episode. Unless I do it again.
TNL quiz. What was the one episode? MBZ forgot to name
the number on. See, there you go. You keep that in your banks, everybody. It was last episode. So, but anyway, we're here again. We're back in business for the second episode of the year. We're doing all right. I'm doing okay. How are you doing, Bally? How's 2021 treating you so far?
It's okay so far. It's kind of like there's very few release dates for games that we know of at the moment, and there's not much coming out either. So it's like a really good window to play, a ton of backlog games, a ton of Game Pass games.
Yeah, things are bleeding over, and it's a good time to check things out. So, yeah, we've got some fun stuff coming up on the show today, and, we'll be talking about that Mario Galaxy, digging into it in deep depth as we finish off our kind of discussion of the 3D collection. But before we talk about the things we're talking about on the show, we have some business to get to, Bally. It's time to do some business. People will remember last year we started a new thing that we wanted to do on the show, which is a thing we called Game Trade.
At the moment, it's an annual event, but yes, we might accelerate it if we choose to.
It could become a biannual. Like we're bi-weekly, we could make it a biannual event.
Biannual.
Which would mean twice a year and not once every 2 years, right? I don't know. Is biannual once every 2 years?
I believe British English defines it as either. And
okay,
my
good.
understanding, I know Americans out there can correct me if I'm wrong, our understanding is that Americans, the use of biannual or bi-weekly means 2 times within the thing. So bi-weekly would be 2 times in a week.
Like Waypoint's podcast is bi-weekly because they do it twice a week.
And they call it bi-weekly, whereas in British English, bi-weekly can mean either. Yeah. Which is wild.
Anyway, you're learning so much today, everybody. All these just grammatical things that you can learn from this Nintendo podcast. Anyway, what is Game Trade, Bally? What is it about? What are we doing?
Game Trade is where we take a game that the other person hasn't played, and I say, MBZ, you've held off too long not playing this game that I think is really great. You need to play this game. And we basically play a game that the other person chooses. And
we're forced to, and we have no choice in the matter.
We have no choice.
Have to do it.
I gave you Okami last year. I believe you didn't have a great time in that game, which is a shame.
That didn't work out that well. Look,
didn't work out that well.
Okami's a fine game, okay? I don't think it's bad. I won't say Okami's a bad game. I think it might be one of the most overhyped games I've ever played in my life.
It's maybe not aged as well as, like, if you'd played it in and around Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, maybe it feels more in that realm of thinking. It's quite hard.
Yeah, because I also think my critical faculties weren't developed enough at that point to critique the things that I find not that great about this game now, So, that's how it went.
I had a better time when you gave me Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney.
Now, who would not have a good time with Ace Attorney, let me tell you.
Yeah, I really never played anything like it and had a pretty good time. Didn't quite make my top 10 games of the year that didn't come out that year, but it's up there. And as I said before, it was a crazy strong year.
Do you have like the interest of doing like one a year? Because you have the trilogy now. Are you looking to play the second game this year and then maybe the third game the year after? Is that like your visual novel? Like you have an RPG tolerance, you have a one visual novel per year tolerance?
In principle, I'm saying it now in January, I would like to play the second game this year.
That would be good.
That's my aim. I just need to find the right gap because last year I felt like there were so few gaps for like... It just felt like games were constantly coming out that I wanted to play, and big, long, meaty games as well, not just short stuff. So it was kind of hard to get to older stuff, but I'd like to play the second game this year.
Yeah, one of my things this year I would like to do is have a bit of gaming resolution and kind of go back to the old days of TNL when we're playing like a lot of older stuff that I've, haven't gone back to in a long time. I've got 3 RPGs on 3DS that I bought in a sale, all these Atlas things. I've got stuff on Wii like Endless Ocean and Dewey's Adventure. I want to play some of these weird things. I want to go back and play some of those instead of focusing on kind of relatively new stuff all the time, because I think that would bring a different flavor, and I want to dig into some weird
and that's
shit,
another reason we're doing Game Trade. It's a good way of going into the backlog. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, without further ado, Bally, it's time to announce to each other, which we haven't said yet, to each other what we're giving.
Can I try and guess the game that you've given me?
Well, you can. However, I think it's more fun for me to tell you.
Okay, then. Right, go for it.
Okay, so Bally, the game I'm giving you, it's been a long time coming.
This is so obvious.
It's been, years in the making, and it really is getting frustrating at this point, because quite frankly, I need my copy of the fucking game back, so you're going to have to charge up your 3DS.
There was such a rush to get it back.
You're going to... Look, I will not lie to you. I've seen this game on sale for like £1 the other day and thought, should I just buy myself a second copy just because I need insurance on this? Bally, it's time to charge up your 3DS. It's time to get in the groove of that strategy once more. Codename motherfucking Steam. You must play it this year. It must happen. You must play this video game I lent to you like 4 years ago. Has been sitting on your shelf forever collecting dust. You have no ambitions to go back to 3DS games, so I'm making you do it. You're going to play Codename Steam.
You say this year. I think last year we played them pretty much immediately after being given.
We did actually. We kind of just jumped on them straight away.
We both had long games last time, so it did take me about a month, I think, to play Phoenix Wright, and I believe Codename Steam is like 20 hours long, so it's probably going to take me a month and a half or something. So
yeah, totally. I don't think it's that long a game necessarily. I love this game. I absolutely adore Codename Steam, as I've kind of talked about a lot on the show. It's one of those games, everyone has that one game that no one else likes that they just love, and Codename Steam is that one for me.
Was it 2015, 2016?
Yes, it was 2015. Yeah.
You know what? I played the demo way back then and had a really good time, and said on the show how I was going to buy this game. And
you did. That's the thing. It's like, I think you actually will enjoy Codename Steam, because we both played that demo and we both really enjoyed it. So
and then something got in the way. I didn't end up picking it up, but you did, and you enjoyed it.
I think it was partly because it maybe it's the nice thing now is you have a new 3DS, which means you can do the speed up enemy terms at ×3 speed, which will make it even more smooth for you. Extra power, the new 3DS, of course. But it's one of those games like Metroid Other M where it was just a fucking bomb. It bombed so hard that it went down to like 10 quid within a couple of months, and that's when I picked it up in the... Well, it was delayed in the UK is the thing. Like, part of this was when it first came out in the US, it didn't have the speed up thing, and a bunch of other things had been changed about it. So it got patched, and then it came out in the UK, and so we got the version that was already better than what it had launched with. So it was kind of like out the gate, it was a little bit worse than it now is today when you go back to play it. So,
cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Codename Steam Bally. I'm guessing that's what you had guessed I was going to give you.
That's what I had guessed.
Yes, there we go.
And yeah, in a way, it kind of got spoiled because we revealed how long the games were that we were going to do for planning reasons. And I was like, well, I bet Codename Steam is the length of time MBZ has given me, and then how long to beat had the exact times. I was like, well, I kind of spoiled it, but oh well, it's fine. Well, I knew you were going to give me this game anyway. Okay.
I, on the other hand, have no fucking idea what you're going to give me, so this will be fun.
Well, I am also going to give you a 3DS game.
Oh.
And that game is called in the UK, I believe, Rhythm Paradise Megamix.
Oh man, okay.
So I think in America it's called Rhythm Heaven Megamix.
Yes.
And this is a game that came out, I think, back in 2016 or 17. I think it was 16.
Something like that, 2016.
And I don't know why I picked it up and you didn't, and like...
We were both kind of covering different 3DS games, I think.
Yeah.
Like I picked up something else, and you decided to... I think it was maybe Phoenix Wright had come out, and I was playing that, and then you picked this up, and stuff like that was happening.
But I absolutely love this game. I actually do think this might be stronger than WarioWare, and that's insane, because it is actually that good. And in our sort of games of all time discussions, it's very hard to push for this when you've not played it, and that sort of thing. So, I guarantee you will have a better time with this than Okami. So I think
that's good. Yeah, I have played a little bit of this series before. I've dabbled in the DS game in the past, and something about the DS game, it got really fucking hard. There were certain levels that were just like,
Was it touchscreen?
There was some touchscreen stuff in there. I can't remember like the full extent of it.
I think this game has no touchscreen pretty much, which is good for a rhythm game.
Interesting. But I know this game pulls on certain mini games from across the series, right? So like it takes stuff from DS and from Wii and from all these other versions.
Yeah, this is like WarioWare Gold before WarioWare Gold was a thing, I believe.
Exactly.
It's that kind of thing. I think there's also some new stuff in there, but I really don't know because it's the only one I've played. And hello, Nintendo, this would be a really good series to bring to Switch at some point, either previous games or a new game. Just give us something, please, because it's great. But yeah, I can't remember who makes Rhythm Heaven.
I believe it is the same team as WarioWare, or at least like adjacent in some senses.
I thought Intelligent Systems made WarioWare.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit blurry with who at this point in time with Nintendo. It's a lot harder, I think, to talk about which team works on what because they did change their structure up. Like it used to be split into the EPD teams, and now it's actually no. It used to be EAD, and now it's EPD, which is the merging of the SPD team and the EAD team to make one unified kind of software branch. So I don't really know the exact developer who makes Rhythm Heaven. But it's internal Nintendo, right? So,
but also when time passes and teams change so substantially, often like the culture within that developer could also change substantially, and they move on to something very different, or who knows? But
exactly.
So unfortunately, you will have to buy this one. I'm not sure how much it is currently on the eShop.
This is a good time to buy 3DS games because they're only going up in price. I've been keeping an eye on certain 3DS games, Bally. Like I'm looking at stuff like Monster Hunter Stories on 3DS or
hard copies on Amazon and that.
Yeah, Fantasy Life. I'm like trying to like have a look and see which of these are going to work out. And it's going to be a tricky kind of thing eventually.
I got this digitally, and it was kind of when Nintendo were giving me like a little bit of digital rewards with something, I think, or something. At the same time as like Star Fox Zero. You remember me getting that, and I picked up Star Fox Guard as well.
Yes.
All that year, which I think was 2016. Yeah, 15.
I believe so.
Anyway, a while ago. But yeah, Rhythm Paradise Megamix.
Very good. That's the European name, of course, is Rhythm Heaven Megamix in the US, because that's just the way this works. I think it used to be like Beat the Beat something back in the day as well. Anyway, it's gone through lots of changes. Cool. I will find that somehow. If I can't find a physical copy, I guess I'll just download it from the eShop. But yeah, looking forward to playing that game. And it's not that long compared, I think, to Codenames Team, so it'll probably be done a lot sooner than you will. But
yeah, I mean, it's like it has a campaign, and I think the campaign took me like 12 to 15 hours.
Oh, wow, that's quite meaty actually then.
Yeah, but then there's like loads of extra stuff you can do if you choose to do so, and there are some crazy difficulty spikes, but I do actually think they are fun, and it's so zany, so WarioWare. Some of the music is incredible, and yeah, cool.
Awesome. Well, I didn't expect that, but here we go. We've got our games ready, and it looks like we're just heading back into 3DS, Bally. It's a good time to do it, reflecting. Can't leave the 3DS behind. Still a great system. Still love it. Fantastic. Well, let's get into the show then, Bally. What are we talking about today?
Today, 2-segment show. For the first segment, we're going to talk about the games that we've been playing. And for the second segment, it's our finale of our celebration of 3D Mario. We're going to, of course, be talking about Super Mario Galaxy. People have been writing in with their thoughts, and we're going to have a good discussion about that game.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will be a good close on that collection, and then let's look at the clock here. 2.5 months you've got to buy that if you haven't bought it yet. So get going, everybody. We're coming up on the 31st of March. Not that far away from now. But yes, I've got. I think we both have physical copies, right, of this game.
Yes.
So Nintendo can't just revoke it somehow digitally from our
Send
accounts.
someone around.
Yeah, exactly. Send the Nintendo police, and they'll just take it from your hands.
Miyamoto comes to my door. He's like, "I'm going to take my copy back. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
We need to sell these in our Osaka theme park."
Yeah, I don't know. They've sold a lot of copies of this game, though, so I wonder if it even holds that much value when people put it up on eBay after the date.
Do they change their policy at last minute and say, hey, it's going to remain?
I don't. It could be an about turn.
It sold so well, we're going to keep going.
I feel like they could.
We scared everyone, and everyone bought it. That was all part of our plan, and now we're going to keep selling it.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea what their motivation behind any of this is. It's a little bit lunatic, but who knows. Anyway, let's get into video games, what we've been playing. I checked out the demo for Monster Hunter Rise on Switch, which had a bit of a direct that went up. I didn't see the direct, but I know people watched that and are getting excited for this game. And what I've heard people talk about Rise so far is it seems like visually, aesthetically, it looks very much in keeping with the 3DS games, right? So, like, everything from, I guess, even the older parts of the series, from 3 on Wii all the way through the Wii U game, all the way through 4 and Generations and 4 Ultimate and all that stuff on 3DS. It, art style wise, is much more closer to that than it is to Monster Hunter World, because World was a much bigger kind of deal. It was on the big boy consoles, and it was a bit of a shift in art style and made this series a bit more accessible to people. And what I've heard from people is, yes, this looks like the 3DS games, but it seems like it is being a bit more accessible in the same vein that World was. And some of those ways they're doing that is making it so that the overworld isn't cut up into chunks and pieces and you load between areas. It's a fully open space you explore now. You have a bit more movement options. There's these things called wire bugs where you can kind of fire them like grappling hooks, and I think you can use them to get onto enemies' backs and like attack them and stuff like that, though I haven't been able to successfully do that yet. And yeah, that type of thing. So it seems like it's doing a bit more streamlining. Of course, I've not played a lot of Monster Hunter. I've played like 3 demos of Monster Hunter in my life. That's the most I've gone into the series.
I was gonna say, like, you've only really tried demos before.
Yeah,
only 3 demos. That's a lot of demos.
I know, but like that's the thing is like my entire interaction with this series is via that medium and not via the actual games. I guess the closest I've got to a Monster Hunter game is Dauntless, and I really like Dauntless a lot. What it kind of does is it cuts out a bunch of the, I wouldn't say extraneous bullshit of Monster Hunter, but kind of in the sense that it's just like, okay, load into a hunt, fight the thing, then get materials from it, and then just do another hunt. Like, you just basically go to hub world to hunt, and it's very easy to get to the monsters. The area is not that large, and it's easy to like match up with people and everything. It kind of works pretty seamlessly, and it looks really nice and has good variety in its weapons and gameplay and stuff. And I found Dauntless really satisfying and enjoyable, and the enemies had like clear patterns and things like that. And I'm sure all that stuff is in Monster Hunter. I've just never dug deep enough into it to get to that point with the series, because here's the breakdown with it is like I jump into this demo, fight the first thing, which is like they usually have a beginner monster and an intermediate one, and the beginner one was like, okay, I take double blades and I just like hit it a bunch, and then it just dies after 15 minutes of just hitting it a bunch.
15 minutes.
Yeah, but that's the thing with Monster Hunter, right? Is like it takes forever to fucking kill these things. They have infinite HP bars, like they just go on forever and ever, and it just takes a really long time. I think part of it is you want to group up with people so that it goes faster, or part of it is like they all go through all these patterns and go to different areas, and you want to chase them down and hunt them down and then take them out. Like, it takes a long time to kill these enemies, and so that happens. Like, so in one sense, the easy monster is like, I don't even have to think. I'm just pressing the fucking X button or the Y button or whatever and just hitting it a bunch. And then I'm like, okay, let's do the hard monster. And I come across this giant fucking dragon, and I'm like, all right, let's try this. And about 10 seconds happen and I'm dead. And I'm like, okay, all right, I clearly, there's something missing here. Either I should be doing this with other people, or I'm missing a step, or something is going on. And
did it not tell you, like, this is the strategy for this, or it's all about working out yourself?
No, look, it's like Dark Souls. Monster Hunter, you're going to have to go on YouTube and ask people, what does this weapon do? How do I use it? What are the strategies? Like, how do you play Monster Hunter? Capcom are not interested in telling you how to do that. They will just let the community figure that out and let people do tutorial videos. It's not really what the game is about. Even the tutorial, which I did this morning just to get a feel for like, oh, okay, because most Monster Hunter demos I've done don't have that stuff. They don't have they usually are just like, fight this monster, off you go, tell you nothing about it, just figure it out as you go along. This one at least tells you what items do. You can pick up these different things in the overworld, and they're like, okay, this will refill this part of your energy meter, this will give you a temporary buff. All those different things get explained to you, but then they don't talk about fighting with the weapons at all. And that's kind of the thing I think I need to learn. of how any of these weapons work. What is the weapon that you want to go with? Most people just kind of lock into a weapon, and that's their weapon. They'll just play that entire weapon the entire time. And every weapon is very different. It's like Overwatch in a sense of like, I'm going to play Hanzo, and I'm just going to learn him, and that's all I know. And then you switch over to McCree, and you're like, what is this? I don't understand this, right? There is a certain level of mastery, I think, with Monster Hunter weapons that people lock into, and they choose their favorite, and that's what they use for every Monster Hunter game. So it's really interesting in that sense, but it doesn't help you. It just doesn't give you any tips or pointers in that way, and it's one of those big barriers to entry I find with the series, is like, you really just have to go out there and figure it out yourself. To be honest, with Dauntless, I did this as well. I went on YouTube and found some videos of like, okay, but what's the best way to interrupt this enemy to like knock them out of their stance and get them to the ground so we can do a bunch of damage to them. And there's some really cool stuff in there with like really small timing windows that you have to be really precise with, and I'm sure Monster Hunter is the same again, but I haven't dug deep enough into it. And I think what I'm ultimately saying is as much as the series has probably changed a lot and has added stuff, I still feel super intimidated by it, right? Like, I still download this demo, I still play through it. What I will say, it's gorgeous. It looks really nice on Switch, has very crisp look to it. It runs at 30, but it's a very smooth 30, and looks fantastic on handheld as well. It takes the Monster Hunter 3DS style and just up-reses it a bunch, basically. It shows to me, similar to what Platinum did with Astral Chain, is like, if you have a third-party publisher who are making a game designed specifically for the hardware, they can just get so much more out of it, you know? When you compare it to stuff like Bloodstain, which is a 2D side-scroller that barely fucking functions, you know, and frame rate is abysmal. This tells you, like, when you're building for other platforms and then you do the Switch as an afterthought, it'll always turn out worse, versus with this game, where they are definitely building for Switch first and foremost. I believe Rise is actually coming out on PC as well, which is interesting, because none of those 3DS games came out on PC, but I think after World, Capcom are like, look, let's just put all these out on these other systems. But yeah, I think there was a stat recently that 87% of the console market last year in Japan was Switch ownership. So
there are some insane numbers about Switch. It is just crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, but when you think about that in particular, and how Monster Hunter is such a Japanese franchise, and that's where it sells really well, it would be very stupid of Capcom to just do World and just go for those bigger consoles versus ignoring Switch and not giving Switch a Monster Hunter game. It makes way too much sense to give them one, and so that's kind of what's happening here. So yeah, it's gorgeous. It definitely is gonna appease those fans. I just question once more, is it just that Monster Hunter is something I need to dive in and just bite the bullet and go for? It was much easier with Dauntless, because Dauntless is a free-to-play game, so I was like, okay, I'll just download it and play it.
Is this the one that's going to push you over the edge, or would you rather just play World on Game Pass and not have the commitment?
Bally, what will push me over the edge is if you commit to it as well.
All right,
we both
can
commit
do it
to
at some point.
Yeah, if we both commit to it and we both say, okay, we're going to co-op these missions together, we're going to learn how to play this game, we're going to get into it.
And there's actual multiplayer online co-op?
Yes, there is. Yeah,
so we could either try this one or we could try World. I'm not overly fussed necessarily.
Either one. I think this one would be quite cool, because it's going to be the new one. Everyone's going to be playing it. There's going to be a lot more relevant guides out there. But also, I think our community will be playing it. And I know there's Monster Hunter fans in our Discord who would probably be down to help us out and play with us.
We could make a little thread to help each other out.
Totally. So I think, this is ticking all the boxes. The problem for me is I'm fucking terrified of Monster Hunter, so I need a friend to help me. That's my proposal of Monster Hunter.
Okay. But, yeah. Do we know when it's coming out?
It's coming out in March. The release window for Nintendo stuff is not that big at the moment, so maybe this is the one, Bally, where we just dive in head first and see if we can figure it out.
Okay.
So we'll see. But yes, other than that, I've been playing not that much else, because I've just been playing Judgment. Judgment has just taken over my fucking life. That game's great. But I'll talk about that on the Nintendo show at some point. Bally, what have you been playing?
I have been playing Katana Zero on Xbox Game Pass, but obviously this game is available on Switch as well. And
Switch version is very good. That's the one I played when it came out.
And weirdly, this game isn't on PS4, which I found out, which is
very
strange.
I believe it released initially on Switch and PC, and then came to other platforms afterwards.
Yeah, suddenly dropping that indie ball. Don't know what's going on. But yeah, Katana Zero, for those who don't know, is like a kind of Ape Out, Hotline Miami, Super Hot kind of style game in
one hit kill basically.
Get running, get killing, don't get killed yourself, and insta kill, as in you die a lot, and I definitely did die a ton in this game. But it's in a 2D setting, gorgeous pixel art.
And you're a ninja in a bar. I guess you're a samurai in a bathrobe.
Samurai master.
Walking around like a neo-noir cyberpunk world.
Yeah,
which is
really
like you just
cool
stand
world.
out very visually from everything else in that world.
Awesome world. And really cool little story that gets going. The story kind of starts off, it's a bit like you do a mission, you sleep, you talk to like some people, and then you do another mission. It's almost like the Stardew Valley repetitive sleep, wake up, do your job kind of thing.
Right.
But then it goes from I'm playing Stardew Valley being an assassin to okay, now the story kind of opens up and lots of threads kind of.
I want that game now, by the way. Stardew Valley, but an assassin, where you like at nighttime you just kill off the villagers.
I mean, the first few hours of this game really do feel like that, and I was really enjoying it. Just like I'm doing my jobs, progressing these things, and then the story kind of goes off the deep end a bit, I think, and kind of like opens up all this stuff.
Well, yeah, because basically you keep cutting to these points which are quote unquote your dreams, I guess, where you're in this chair and this guy is injecting you with something, or you're having a therapy session basically. Is what's going on.
So you thought those were dreams? Yeah, I thought those were just.
I couldn't remember. It's been a while since I played it, but
there's other parts that happen in your dreams, but I believe the therapy guy who injects you with the thing is actually happening in the morning, like it's
right.
Thing.
Okay.
But all that becomes clear, and I think put the story completely to the side, I still think this is a fantastic game. Like I think mechanically, even though it's pixel art, it's just so mechanically sound, it's unbelievable. And so you have the ability to you can slash, you can jump, there's like a wall jump, you can dodge roll. Yeah. You can deflect bullets back at people, and that's pretty much it. But the thing that streamlines it all together is this Jedi Spidey sensibility to slow down time, which is on a meter, so like you have a window of time to act while you're in this slow-mo time. But while you're in slow-mo, like you can visualize attacks more easily, you can visualize the bullets coming at you and deflect them, you can roll through people, attack them from behind, and you're streamlining all these things together in a really impressive, smooth way before you then essentially release the button again and you get into cover, let it charge up, and keep going, and you're trying to kill because it is one hit kill. You are very vulnerable in this game. You've got to be really careful. And it's just such an impressive and satisfying mechanic. Like I actually think mechanically it's more satisfying even than like Ape Out. And then Super Hot VR is kind of hard to compare anything to, because that feeling
because you're like, literally I was ducking under a fucking table at one point playing that. I'm like, this is ridiculous, man.
Shooting guns in VR generally feels ridiculous, but with the added slow-mo things that Super Hot does, that's kind of like a separate thing.
It's almost unfair to compare.
It's almost unfair to compare it, but this is best of the rest. Like this is the best game in that genre like I've kind of played. I think it's just mechanically so good.
I would probably agree. Yeah, I really love it. It's it definitely has that learn the space type of feel of you're gonna attack this room maybe 12 times, and you by the end you will have like this perfect playthrough where you will know where everyone is coming from, you will know exactly what to do. And it also has the Super Meat Boy-esque like rewind system, or like it will show you security cam footage of you going through the room after you've cleared it out,
so you can always see your successful run,
which doesn't show any of the slow down time. So if you did anything cool in slow down time, it will show it in real time, so you deflecting bullets and all that stuff happens in real time with that. It's all just really impressively like put together, and it's like a 4-hour campaign. It's a very focused campaign. Like I like that the game doesn't get so carried away with its own mechanics that it's like, we're going to make a 6, 8, 10-hour thing. I think it's really impressive that they've made such a mechanically sound game, but still keep it so tight in terms of length, like 4 to 5 hours long. Like, and even within that length, it has a load of variety. Like there's this entire motorcycle chase sequence, and each of the boss fights feels really different, and they're all just unique places you're going to. Like visually, so much spectacle happens that it's not just going from room to room, although that is probably the bulk of the game of entering these spaces and things like that. But you also have like dialogue choices. I remember there's the receptionist you talk to about anime or something, and then depending on your dialogue choices later on, either she'll side with you or she won't. And I remember watching that in the Giant Bomb Quick Look and like them doing it two different ways and how that turned out. For what this is as a, I think those other games, stuff like Hotline Miami and Ape Out, really are one note. They're like, you're just going to do the same thing. But this, having the narrative and having all the variety, makes it stand out for me above those games.
I completely agree. It's incredibly impressive. And like even those individual campaign missions, they never really feel overly long. Like there are some real difficulty spikes, but I generally think the difficulty spikes are pretty fair, more or less. Like they do get progressively difficult one after the other. It's not like there's a huge spike and then it gets easy again necessarily. Like I think it does ramp up a bit at the end, but as long as you've been progressively like working out how to defeat these enemies and clear these rooms, like I think it's a really good progression actually. Honestly, my biggest hang up with the game is that I think the plot is so cool and it opens so many threads. I think it just does a bad job of wrapping up enough threads to be necessarily satisfied in the sense that
it feels like it ends prematurely. It feels like there should be another couple of hours of the game to just finish it off or close things out.
And like I think they might have said there is a sequel coming. I know that there's
so I think the developers talked about some DLC that is happening at the moment, and I don't know if that's just wrapping up this story or something.
I read that the DLC doesn't directly link to the end of game plot points, which is interesting. So I think in that sense they probably are going to go for like a sequel at some point. But
I mean, I would love a full sequel. The thing is, this game has been in development forever. I remember watching a kind of funny GDC thing back in 2015, and this game came out, I believe, 2018, was it? Or maybe 2019?
I want to say 19, but I could be wrong.
Might have been 2019. And yeah, that's it's taken a long time. That's like 4 years minimum for it to come out. So it's going to be a while for this to come out.
Yeah.
A new one.
So definitely some sort of loose ends to resolve, but the stuff it does give you good, meaningful plot points, beats at the end are very impressive and very satisfying. And like I was very impressed by like just the world building and this crazy, like as you say, like kind of cyberpunk futuristic yet Japanese samurai setting is really cool stuff. Like, and it's kind of like got that kind of gangster Yakuza kind of feel to a lot of the places that you're going and things that you're doing. And it's a very gory game, but in a very nice pixel art way is quite impressive as well. Like it's cool. You were very hot on this game, MBZ, and I had high hopes, and like it's definitely met those expectations. And
Great.
Yeah, if you got Switch or Game Pass or anything to play this on, definitely give it a go. It's very, very impressive.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most visually appealing pixel art games I've ever played in my life. Like every like little minute detail, the way they're able to convey emotion and just like little touches is so well done.
Yeah.
So
this is so much more than just a really good action game. But as I said, if this was only action in some bland art style, it would still be a great game. Like actually, like that's what's so incredible about this, and that's what, as we've said, makes it stand apart from the likes of like Ape Out, for example. Which is good. It's fun. I love that game a lot, but it's quite one note. And this game is substantially harder than Ape Out, but in all the right ways.
Totally. Fantastic. Cool. And then the other thing that we want to talk about a little bit is a game we've been playing, we had a few sessions of, is Killer Queen Black, which came out, I want to say a year ago on Switch maybe. This game is a port essentially of an arcade cabinet game that has been around for a few years, and I always heard people talk about it, of like this crazy chaotic multiplayer thing where you have 10 players and it's like this dual screen machine in an arcade where 5 people are on one side and 5 people are on another side, and I never really understood what it was, because when people try to explain it, it makes no fucking sense, and so it might be hard for us to explain it now as well. But it went on sale at the end of last year, and I encouraged a bunch of people in the Discord to pick it up because it was literally like £1.
Yeah.
It was ridiculously cheap on the Switch eShop.
And it's also on Game Pass now, I believe.
It is, and I believe it's cross-play. So, you know, if you have it on other platforms, you can cross-play with Switch and with other places to play it. And so I was like, okay, let's everyone, just as many people as possible, pick this up. And because the idea is you want a full 8 players to play this game, because that's kind of how it works at its best. And so that's what happened. And then it was a little bit of a while. And then last year we played it in a session with 5 people. And then earlier, a couple of weeks ago, we played it with a full 8 people. And this is one of the best multiplayer games I've ever played. I absolutely love Killer Queen Black. And it is so... it's just this kind of tension between all these different things you have to do, and your kind of focus is pulled in one direction, which means you're going to be leaving something else out of your focus, which means your teammates have to focus on it.
Because there's 3 different ways to win the game.
Right, so let's kind of give a breakdown of what Killer Queen Black is and how it works. You basically play as 2 different teams of... On the Switch version, it's 4 players. I believe the arcade is 5, so they've pared it down, I think, for the Switch for either screen real estate reasons or some other reason, probably online reasons. It's 4 players versus 4 players. 1 person on each team plays the Queen, and the Queen is a character who can kill other enemies with like the lance or sword that she has. But she only has 3 lives. So if the Queen dies 3 times, then your team loses. But obviously the Queen has the ability to attack where the other characters don't. The other characters are workers. And workers can do anything from pick up berries to take back to your home base. And if you get all the berries in your home base, you can win. Or the workers can ride on the snail at the bottom of the screen. And if the snail gets to one side, then you win. Or the workers can take those berries to gates and go inside those gates and then get armored up so that they can attack as well. So the game is just this chaos of trying to figure out what is the best way for your team to win, what is the most efficient way, and what is the way you can get away with the most without people realizing. And it's just so much fun. You are constantly just jumping between, okay, I need to make sure, if you're playing as the Queen, make sure all the gates are changed to my team's color so that my workers can go in them and use them, versus, oh no, someone's on the snail, I need to take them out before they get to the finish line. And then someone else in the background could be just quickly getting berries into their base and throwing them in the holes. And all of this, I'm sure, to everyone who has not played this game sounds like complete and utter fucking nonsense. But let me tell you, after playing it for, I think, like 4 hours total now that we've played it for, it's a dream. I am in love with Killer Queen Black, and I just want to play it more, honestly.
I think what's so clever about it is it has all the joys of asymmetrical gameplay, like a Nintendo Land or something, like that Luigi's Mansion game or the Chasing the Toads. It's asymmetrical gameplay done symmetrically, where you are actually you're getting all the joy of, oh my god, I'm the Queen and I can dominate all these characters, but oh wait, they've also got a Queen and they can do the same back to us. And very different gameplay styles between playing as the Queen or a worker. And there's a lot of pressure when you're playing as that Queen, and in particular it's very easy to die 3 times as the Queen, and that obviously means you've lost it for your team. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, when you're playing as the Queen to make sure that,
especially in those moments where like the snail is right by the goal and then the Queen dies instead of the snail,
because you've got to go to that goal and try and kill them, and if they kill you in your attempt to stop them, then that's life, because they were about to win anyway. So it's that when to know to push as the Queen, when to know to like armor up and defend your own Queen, when to know to push the snail, push the berries as a worker. Like it's such a fine balance that I think it actually is too simple to be like, oh, if you're really bad with the Queen, you will lose. Because I think you could ultimately argue, well, maybe the workers should have protected their Queen more, or maybe they should have pursued the snail, or maybe, like there's it is really, initially I thought, my god, the Killer Queen has so much more power and control over the entire match. But I think as we've played more, I've realized if you have workers who know what to do at the right time, it's more valuable than the Killer Queen itself in that sense. So like,
totally. And it requires some sort of level of teamwork or understanding with each other, in terms of your Queen could be just on her own versus the 3 workers are just focusing on the economic victory, which is taking berries back to your base. If all 3 workers are just focusing on economic victory and they're not doing it fast enough, the other team can just get their workers geared up and turned into warriors, and then you have 4 fucking warriors versus 1 Queen, and that puts you in a really tricky situation, right?
Totally.
And so you have to really balance those ideas of one worker should be someone, either a laser blaster or a guy with a kind of rotating ball around him that's really good for killing the Queen, or even a sword person. And I think that is a pretty good balance generally, is like having one worker who's attacking alongside the queen and then two other workers who are either riding the snail or helping with economic victory.
Yeah, always having one worker, because I think a victory we saw a couple of times was essentially I would joke that it would be the Praetorian Guard. So this is when everyone armors up and defends their queen, and then that group of the queen with her guards would just go to the snail with a single worker and protect the one worker riding the snail to the end. And that's a really great strategy for both going for the snail victory but also killing the queen victory, because there's so many armored up units that if the queen decides to try and attack that snail, like they're in for a world of hurt, because they're gonna have to get past all these guards who are defending the snail. Totally. So like there's just so many cool strategies, because like that strategy I just said, I guess the best one way to defend against that is to get all your workers to suddenly go for the economic victory. You don't necessarily have to take them on in that
or even using one worker to sacrifice themselves, because you can throw yourself at the snail and the snail will take time to eat you, and so it will really slow down their snail progress by just basically sacrificing your worker to be like, because the workers have infinite lives versus the queen who only has 3 lives, so worker lives are very expendable, and you can, I guess, some fucking like capitalism metaphors in this game even, but that's the idea basically, is that you can kind of stop certain things happening in lots of different ways.
And we should say this is all taking place in like a 2D setting. This is 2D platforming in that sense, and like the top of the screen links to the bottom of the screen and the right of the screen links to the left, so you can just slide through the screen, for example.
It all takes place on a single screen, and you can certain maps will allow you to drop from the bottom to the top, and certain maps will have, like the one that we kept getting messed up on was the one where there's just a straight line where the snail is, and Bally's team at one point had like 2 people with guns just shooting from one side to the other as someone else just tried on my team to get on the snail to get to the end, and it was a lot of fun. That map was very, very intense, but yeah, lots of variety in the way things are set up. Like some maps are much easier to get an economic victory on because there's less slots to put into, and some it's just easier to go for the attacking strategy. It feels like such a chaotic mess and yet supremely balanced at the same time, you know? It never feels like you're out of reach of a victory because of something to do with the balance of the game. It's always your own team strategy that has, befallen you.
I would say the majority of victories would be killing the queen victories. But at the same time, I think we're not very good at protecting the queen when she needs protected necessarily, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and people I think are a bit more just, gung-ho when it comes to that stuff of just dive in and attack. Versus there's probably more strategic. Like, I would love to watch competitive Killer Queen, honestly. Like, I think it would be fascinating to see how people play this game at a high level.
I would imagine that they're very regimented and strict about going from one task to another. And what I mean by that is they might be like, right, our queen is on 1 life left. Now we must armor up immediately and defend her, or that sort of thing, and being able to do it in a split second.
Yeah, and then that also brings into mind of like, because the queen can change the color of the gates, you have to make sure your queen is changing your gates in order for you to be armored up in the first place, right? Because that can really shift the balance of things. If one team has taken all the gate colors, then the other team, if they just have workers, can't really do anything until their queen goes and flips it. So there's so many things to think about when you're either the worker or the queen. There's multiple just kind of fronts that you have to be fighting.
Totally.
Fires to put out. So
my God, is it fun though? It's
so good. Oh my goodness.
When I think of my favorite multiplayer experiences, I think of obviously Super Smash Brothers. I really think of like Nintendo Land, when you've had 5 players properly playing some asymmetrical gameplay, especially in Luigi's Mansion and Mario Chase. I think of a good Mario Kart session is up there, maybe Splatoon, but maybe like a game like Overwatch as well. But this is like easily there and potentially beyond. Like it is so fun, and as you say, having 8 players, 4 versus 4, when we're all just chatting together, was just an absolute blast. Like, it is so much fun.
What I will say is that we are fortunate in that we have a community that we can call on and be like, hey, we need people to play this 8-player game. Most people don't have that. And what I will say is that if you're just looking for random matches, especially on Switch at the moment, maybe this is across all platforms because it is cross-platform, you're going to run into some real barriers in terms of just searching for a game. It's like with Nidhogg 2 on Switch of like, I love that game, but like I'm not going to find multiplayer sessions of Nidhogg 2. If I want to play it, I'm going to have to hit up Bally and be like, let's play it. You know, you really do have to get a group of people together to do it, but it is so worth it to do 8 players because it's really satisfying and fun, and just so many crazy things can happen, you know. Like,
I would also say that although it's got cross-platform and that sort of thing, the matchmaking is not good in the sense that you can't just jump on with 5 people and fill the remaining slots very easily. Like
in a private match, yeah.
In a private match. So like you either kind of go in as being... You either almost play single player and get randomly put somewhere, or you go in with 8 people, and it's very hard to go in with 5 or 6 people, for example, and try and fill those remaining slots.
Yeah, so we when we played with 5 people, we had to like spoof the online, basically because no one else was playing at the time. We just jumped in, and
this might have been before Game Pass as well, so maybe that's changed.
It was.
I don't know.
Maybe it has. But yeah, we jumped in and we got into a match with all of us, but then the rest of the slots were filled by bots. But then sometimes a real player would jump in, and some of those real players we played with as Queen were fucking terrifying, because one of the other things you can do, like the movement with the Queen, I think is probably the thing I'm most interested in at a high level play, because there was one guy who was basically like a fucking ballerina, just like dancing like the Queen around the stage, using the dive and the dash in like perfect harmony to just eviscerate everybody.
We should say the Queen has 2 moves: that dive attack down vertical, which is like, you know, a pogo stick.
It's like a Toon Link or Link's down down A,
and a side dash slash attack. And basically, even when the workers armor up, they are never given that powerful dive attack. It's only the side slash attack they ever get. So the Queen is always more flexible in terms of the speed with which she can move around the stage and attack, more so than even the armored up workers. So with high level play, they have a huge advantage.
Yes, so we got destroyed by one of those players, but for the most part, it's phenomenal. I would love to play the arcade version of this at some point when people can go outside and things like that.
Do you think one of these arcades exists in Scotland?
Oh boy, probably one somewhere.
One
you'd
in
have
Glasgow,
to Google.
maybe.
Yeah, you probably have to Google really hard to find a Killer Queen machine somewhere in Scotland, I would imagine. But
there should be a few in London.
Maybe, yeah. I'd love to find one and play that, because that seems very, very enjoyable. But, you know, the Switch version is great. I think you can do it locally as well. So if you get 8 people in a space together doing it just in one kind of setting, that also works really well. Again, you need a lot of people to do that. So it's probably easier for some people more so than others. But yeah, I would highly recommend playing Killer Queen Black. And if you've heard this and this sounds interesting to you and you want to pick it up or play it on Game Pass, head over to our Discord, because I'm sure we'll be doing some more Killer Queen Black
sessions. We've got a little online games thread in there that you can jump in, and if you want to play anything else, you can ask to play that as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, that is going to close us out for the first part of the show. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be back after the break talking about Super Mario Galaxy. See you in a bit. All right, everyone, welcome back to the second part of the show. It's time to close things out. It's time for the end, the grand finale of our big Mario celebration. It's time to talk about Super Mario Galaxy. As Mario says at the end, Hello New Galaxy, I think that's his phrase.
the shine get of this game.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of story in this game as well.
Oh my god, yeah. I spent like the end of the game just scrolling through that book, just like falling asleep. I guess it is meant to be like a...
Did you actually? I was gonna wonder. Yeah, I was wondering if we should talk about the book and Rosalina's story time and stuff like that, because I never, and even when I was younger, never engaged with that at all. Basically, never went into that room. It's some weird stuff, but apparently it's kind of decent writing, and I think Koizumi was responsible for some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's cute. I mean, I purely went there at the end of the game as I thought it was a way of unlocking the purple coin missions, but it's not. You have to go and face Bowser. So
right. Yes.
I meant I saw it, and then I had to scroll through something like 8 chapters at once or something, and it's just I just wasn't in the mood to read like this children's storybook for that long. So yeah, totally. I think it probably is very good. It's just I wasn't in the mood.
Yeah, it's one of those things that doesn't really make sense in a Mario game because, you know, when you're playing Mario, you're running around, you're jumping. If you're going to do story in a Mario game, you've got to include it in the gameplay somehow, right? You've got to make narrative gameplay, and they don't really care about doing that kind of thing, which is why they're like, hey, here, just go and just in a room and read a book, I guess. That's how we're going to deliver some sort of backstory to this character, which I've heard people say that they really like it, and it's good, but it's never been something I'm interested in. So Mario Galaxy, one of the... I think it's the first 3D Mario I played when it came out. I guess you did that with Sunshine, but you know, I didn't own a GameCube at that. Actually, I probably did own a GameCube at that time.
You did play DS when that came out with DS launch.
That's true. 64, we played at the DS launch, but that was the launch of the DS versus the N64. So Mario Galaxy really, for both of us, the true first time that we both played a Mario game at the same time when it came out. And what were your memories, Bally, of the time when Mario Galaxy was first coming out, when it was announced and everything surrounding it? How did you feel as a young child?
I mean, I was very excited. I think one of my most nostalgic memories of just like E3 and the Wii launch was like watching all of the footage of Mario Galaxy and watching the same few, like maybe 20 different journalists on like janky ass GameSpot videos playing the same level. Just I wanted to see everyone play that stupid level again and again. Like that's how fixated I was on this game. And then the game itself was like, it came at a time when I was playing very dip in, dip out games like driving games, Mario Kart, Wave Race, games that you could just sit down and play a bit and no commitment, you know. And
Pokemon Stadium,
Pokemon Snap, like all these games that just don't require, they're not necessarily campaign driven. So Mario Galaxy was like one of the first games that I ever sat down and did everything in a sort of campaign style kind of game. And I think in that sense, it's just very clear in my memory, like a lot of that, and watching you play the Let's Play and that sort of thing. Like Mario Galaxy remained fresh in my mind, even though I've only got 120 stars twice.
I mean, that's pretty significant compared to most people. I specifically remember there was this like weird app thing that I downloaded to my laptop around that E3 when the Wii was first revealed, and you know Mario Galaxy had some footage and stuff like that, and I got a bunch of videos from there, and I remember just similar to you, just watching, just being in awe of like, how is this possible? Like he's walking upside down on a thing, and I was just, my jaw was just dropping constantly. I was like, how do you make a game like that where you just walk upside down? It was just bonkers to me. And then you're like going across the side of these planets. It was insane. So when the game came out, the first thing I recall is calling you. Ali T was at your house. You and Ali T were at your house, and for some reason, I had a phone call with you because we this was before Skype, before fucking MSN or whatever.
Phone calls,
yeah. So we had a phone call, and so I was talking with you guys, and then like Ali T left, and Ali T and you had concocted this thing, probably driven by him, to not tell me that you had Mario Galaxy. And so
crazy shit,
and so you were just being like little dicks basically. But then you because you were like, oh, I'm your friend, I'm actually going to tell you. So then when Ali T went away, you secretly told me that you did have Mario Galaxy because you didn't want to be mean.
DNL for life.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why I remember, and I remember just being so fucking jealous. I just remember being the most jealous person on the planet because I didn't have it yet. So yes, that was one of my clearest memories surrounding Mario Galaxy, is you and Ali T pretending that you don't have Mario Galaxy when you actually did. But I think I got it soon after that. I imagine I would have got it for Christmas. It's just you probably got it right when it came out, just before.
Did Ali T get it?
I think eventually when he had his Wii. Yeah, maybe he did. I can't remember if you lent it to him or if he just bought his own copy.
Yeah,
he must.
I just have no memory of Ali T ever playing a Mario game.
Yeah, mind. I think he did play Galaxy. I think he did. Okay. So all of us at the time were into Mario Galaxy. And yeah, I remember playing through the whole thing. At the time, I didn't go for the 120. That was, I think, a few years later. It was around the time when Galaxy 2 was about to come out, when you had gone back to it and you had gone and got the 120 in it. And I was like, well, I can't have Bally do the 120 and me not do it. So that's when I did it. And then soon after that, I started my Let's Play channel, and I decided, well, after you beat Mario Galaxy, you unlock Luigi, or at least if you do all the stars, I think you unlock Luigi. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do Super Luigi Galaxy, and I start the Super Luigi Galaxy playthrough, and not like 5 days after I start it, Chugga Conroy starts Super Luigi Galaxy, and I remember being like, wow, okay, I guess the biggest person on YouTube is doing this, so I'm not really going to get much traction with my Let's Play of... Because I was like, oh, this is going to be really unique, it's going to be Super Luigi Galaxy, and then he does the exact same thing and calls it Super Luigi Galaxy, but I want history to know that I did it before Chugga Conroy did, alright? Like, I was ahead of the curve, you know, I was on the train, and I think, I never really talked about this, but I think the process of Let's Playing Mario Galaxy 120 stars made me dislike the game more than I think it deserves. And I think it, in my mind...
It's like streaming gives Sunshine a bump and Let's Playing Galaxy gives it a bit of a...
Yeah. It's one of those different things. When streaming is so different because there's no editing involved, there's no time pressure of... you just kind of play the game and what happens, versus when you're putting out episode after episode, you want to make progress in each one and you want to make sure you're not failing constantly. And so dying on fucking Battle Rock Galaxy or whatever, doing the purple coins, going underneath the thing, getting hit by cannons as you're trying to get all of them, that is a royal fucking pain in the arse. And I remember that star specifically just being almost a breaking point for me, and just I'm going insane trying to do this. And it's weird because I have played this game twice before this current playthrough, and yet my memories of it are less clear than my memories of the other two games in terms of levels. And maybe that's because I've just watched more of the other two games over the years.
There's so many levels as well.
Yeah, and they're all very different. And yeah, it's been a long time since I've really thought about it that much. And so I would say that coming into this and having played it through now again, back when we were doing our top 50 games list and we were talking through all these games and stuff, I always do think that Mario Galaxy 2 is the superior game, and obviously we don't have the chance to replay that at the moment unless we want to get our Wiis out and do that nonsense. Hopefully they will put it on the Switch at some point in time. But I always hold up Mario Galaxy as a masterpiece of a game. And coming back to it, it's still an amazing game, right? It's still fantastic. I no longer think it's a masterpiece of a game, and I think part of it is like you don't have the impact of the time of just everything being so fresh and new. Part of it is there is a lot more motion control and mandatory motion control in this game than I remembered, and some of the level design, when I think about it and I compare it to some of the Mario 64 stuff, I'm like, wait a second, they're just doing the same thing here to get a star. And in fact, some of these stars are just, there's 3 stars per world mostly for the major ones, and one of them is like, follow this shark's rings, just go round in a circle. And I'm like, that's literally what you did in Mario 64. We've not evolved at all here. And so there are some stars when I was going through, I was like, wait a second, this game is not as innovative as I maybe once thought it was.
There's a lot of just get to the top of the mountain, get to the top of the level,
right.
The star at the top.
Totally, yeah. So yeah, I still think Mario Galaxy, fantastic game overall, still the best of these 3. But I don't think I hold it in the same deep reverence as I did a decade ago. So yeah. Bally, what were your overall thoughts coming back to Mario Galaxy? You, of course, so this time I've done 120 twice now. I've done 242, which is once you do 120 with Mario and 120 with Luigi, you then unlock the super secret final star, which is basically just a victory lap where you go back to the plaza, the festival plaza, and you collect purple coins in the festival plaza.
Right.
And so you can do that for Mario and you can do that for Luigi, getting one extra star for both of them. So 242 total.
Yeah, no, I got 120 this time. I guess I would have had to fight Bowser again to get Luigi. I don't know. I just sort of stopped.
I can't remember, because I do remember in my playthrough, my Let's Play, fighting him and then doing the rest and then fighting him again at the end.
That would make sense, because nothing really happens when you get 120, as it were. You sort of have those 3 final stars,
right,
that are all based on motion controls, and then that's that. And I just sort of paused the game, got the 120 screen, and then gave in. My overall thoughts were like, wow, this game is still spectacular in 2 ways. Mainly the going upside down, the galaxy, the space look. Like, there's very impressive lighting and vistas and this kind of thing that's just like pretty jaw-dropping. And I think they really pushed that a lot earlier on, like the Good Egg Galaxy, that sort of thing. And the other thing is, like, I really do like the music. I think that the classical orchestra style is something that works really well for this game. And as much as I love 3D World going into the jazz, and I think Odyssey is a lot more jazzy as well, and I think those work for those games in the same way I do actually think the classical orchestral style works well for this game. And it was famously like Nintendo's first orchestrated game, right? And that was like a big deal at the time.
It was.
Those are the 2 things that really stuck with me in terms of positives going back. In terms of things that were less good, it's showing its age, where it's clearly that point between Super Mario Sunshine and Mario Odyssey in terms of, like, this is the the third 3D Mario in that sense. It felt like trying to compare the movement to, I think, Odyssey or Sunshine is very hard. Like, it's a very different movement style. I think it's more comparable to like 64. And I think that I said before, I think he feels doughy, and I kind of stand by that a bit, where I do think he's very slow. The spin jump is slow, but gives you a lot of flexibility. It's just a very slow game generally, and I think that I definitely, and I said this at the time during Sunshine, I way prefer the speediness and snappiness of Sunshine, and I think they perfected that with Odyssey. And I just think movement-wise, Odyssey is just leagues ahead in many ways of that like finesse that you want when you're 3D platforming. But that aside, it just kind of, I thought that stuff would age better than it has done. And I'd be really interested to play Galaxy 2 again, because I played that game around 2013, 14. So it's even been some time since I've played that game. So I am interested to see, because I do stand by, I do think Odyssey is the best of the bunch. And I think this definitely cemented in my mind that I'm probably right in thinking that with my own personal preferences. I think that the motion control stuff worked fine. I think as we said before, I think it's snappier and works better with a Wiimote, and it worked better at the time. I do think with the Joy-Cons, it's not quite as snappy, but it's feasible. It works okay.
It's quick enough to just tap the R button to recenter yourself, but I did have to do it a lot, constantly almost resetting it.
Yeah, and I think maybe the best aspect of the game is the way that it is taking this idea of the floodless levels in Sunshine, where you're taken out of the main level into like a side level. And Galaxy just says, okay, but why don't we, rather than have a main level and a side level, let's take lots of side levels, put them together in the same sandbox, and then we'll just have these stars that ping you around the different aspects of them. And even between levels, between getting different stars, they utilize different areas of those same worlds in a very creative way, where it's just saying this is actually 2 different levels, but you're just going to play in this half of the level for this star and this half of the level for the other star. It's just a really more efficient use of, hey, we created all these ideas. How do we have the player enjoy these things in a way where they're not constantly sitting through loading screens? So that's totally where the point-to-point I keep saying stars for the things that the jump stars, I think they're called. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah, where you either you spin in them and
it's a star that pings you to another area.
And sometimes you get some star bits like surrounding you that you collect as you go. Yeah,
I think they are just a fantastic way of preventing loading screens while essentially just flying around collecting star bits or whatever. It's just a really clever way of saying, here are some different ideas we've got that are maybe not long enough for standalone levels in and of themselves, but are still exciting and worth including. So therefore we're going to stick this here, stick that there, and it's just a very smooth transition where you feel like 64 and Sunshine, it was more efficient for them to build one big world that you would keep coming back to. I'm talking about like the main levels, and that was maybe the case more so with Sunshine, even though they do kind of have those branching off floodless levels. It's just like taking that idea and going to the next level, which I think is probably the best thing about this game, honestly.
Totally. It's clever stuff, and to some degree it feels less cohesive as a result of that jumping between areas, right? Like your one level will just go from some upside down side-scrolling platforming thing to a rotating around a planet trying to catch the Goombas type of thing to something else, and it doesn't feel like there is this necessary like idea kind of. It doesn't really come together in the same way as Sunshine and 64 do, right? Because
I think that varies drastically based on the stage. You're right. Some stages it's like, what? I can't even, like, there's no sense of what this level is about or anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's very
one of the
weird.
particular ones I remember is there's a hidden star which you feed the Luma. You feed the Lumas sometimes in the levels in order to get them to open up an extra bonus star that's within
There's a lot of like standalone single star galaxies.
Yeah, those exist as well. But I mean the Lumas inside the levels.
Got you,
so the ones you feed 30 star bits to. There's one where you feed it star bits and it just sends you off to a giant wooden Yoshi head.
Yeah.
And you just kill all the Goombas on it. And that Yoshi head just looks amazing. I took so many screenshots of it because I'm like, holy shit. One thing I do want to point out is how fucking crisp and sharp this game looks in 1080p. It is amazing. And I know you have a 4K TV, Bally, so I don't know if the upscaling works or downscaling works quite as well, but on my monitor, playing Galaxy honestly feels like a brand new game. It is so good looking. That art has held up incredibly well. It shows just how good it was at the time, and it was just the fact that we had lower resolution and we couldn't have it at a higher kind of look back then. But all that art just scales so well. There's a moment with giant apples. It was one of my favorite moments in the game where these worms are going from apple to apple and you cross the worms, and it's just gorgeous. Like going around this, all those areas that have kind of a winding, almost cylindrical path that Mario goes around, and you can kind of see the horizon, see the curvature of it, and see what you've kind of gone across. That stuff for me is some of the most visually impressive stuff in the game. So,
but those you're right. Those Lumas where they're inside the level, and then they just create a random one-off planet inside the level that you get a star jump to, whatever. And then you do something on that little bonus bit, and you get a star. I agree. It does feel very. Wow, this is thematically so bizarre, like to link this level to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's disjointed, but the entire game is kind of disjointed, right? Like, the whole notion of it is that you're in space hopping from planet to planet. And so that kind of fits with the theme in some degree, and it does allow them a level of creativity and just bonkersness that I think they take even further in stuff like Galaxy 2 and then Odyssey. But it definitely lends to the sense of it's not as cohesive as the previous games in terms of level design and stuff.
I will say, I do think the walking upside down around a planet thing, which I think they utilize way more in this game than Galaxy 2. I think I was way hotter on it at the start of the game for a number of reasons. One is, I think visually as a spectacle, it's very impressive, especially early on where you are seeing like the horizon and that sort of thing happening. But then I do think by the end of the game, when it's visually less impressive because you're kind of used to the setting, and the levels get much harder, especially like one of the purple coin ones where you're collecting like stuff while you're upside down and that sort of thing. I was just like, by the end of this game, there's just a bit too much being upside down. But I will say stuff like the Bowser fights in particular are maybe the best use of that mechanic where it is Bowser around that planet. And I just think there are patches of this game where the utilization of Mario being upside down maybe could have been done better or taken out altogether. And it's just, I think they maybe got a little bit carried away, which is understandable because at the time it was a really cool thing.
Yeah, totally.
And I do think the Galaxy 2 improves on that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get a few thoughts from some people who wrote in about their first times with the game. For Adaptability says, like most games I found too difficult, I put the game down and never actually beat Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii. Suffice it to say, my 10-year-old self would be proud of what I was capable of in 3D All-Stars. Replaying the game after 64 meant getting used to the spin jump, since diving is no longer an option for fast reversal. I was glad to see that spinning was mapped to the Y button because it makes timing jumps much easier than shaking the Joy-Con and hoping it registers. How much did you use the spinning of the Joy-Con to do the spin jump versus pressing the Y button? And also, did you do what I did, which is... So part of the time, actually, when I was playing this, if I was playing it in handheld mode, I would actually just set the little mini Switch screen down on my desk in front of me, take off the Joy-Cons and play with those. I never once played just regular in handheld because it just didn't feel right. This is one of the weirdest things, is the only time the Joy-Cons, split Joy-Cons, has felt like the best method to play a video game, and that's because the original felt like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Every time I wasn't on the big screen on my 4K TV, I would just utilize the screen and take the Joy-Cons off. I did it more out of necessity of collecting star bits because I didn't want to do all the touchscreen rubbish to collect star bits, and I had this fear that, you know, because you actually do need star bits to unlock those Lumas, that if I just played handheld and ignored the star bits, I might become a Luma that needs some star bits that I don't have enough for. So I was like, I don't want to be in that situation, so I'm going to always...
What I'll say to you is, me having done 71 stars and finished the game, I got all of the hungry Lumas without having to stretch too much for getting star bits. You get a lot of fucking star bits.
True, I agree. And you do. It's just, if I decide to play half the game handheld without thinking about star bits, that was my concern, was just that it would...
Yeah. That's one of the things, though, about this game, is I actually think the thing that holds up best about it is collecting star bits in some ways. I love it. Just feels so satisfying. Yeah, it just feels so satisfying to just quickly flick your hand across and just like rotate it and just like collect all these little bits, and the way they fly into Mario, and again the sound of it and the look of it, it's just so satisfying to just pick them up, you know. For me, they are superior to coins in this game. People love collecting coins in Mario games.
Coins feel so redundant in the other games generally, and even in this game, they're almost like they're just health, really, in this, especially in this game, because like the 3 bars of health is quite tricky in points. It's not overly difficult.
That said, you know, there was a point when I had 82 lives, and then I had to shut the game off and came back and remembered.
Why does it do that?
That's what they did. They just took all your lives away when you turned the game off.
God.
But then after that, I got back up to like 35. So I probably did have over 100 total at some point in the game, if you were to count all of those together.
I would say, to your original question, I always used the Y button. I do.
Interesting.
It's just my preference. At the time, I thought the waggle was fine. I don't think I loved it or hated it. It was just kind of necessary. But having the option to do it as the Y button, I liked a lot.
That's wild. I was the complete opposite. I always shook it. And I think part of it is I just have this muscle memory associated with Mario Galaxy where it just feels wrong not shaking it, just because that's how I know it.
I agree, but my muscle memory had almost been retrained with the cap from Odyssey. Like, it felt more natural to use the button.
Huh. Yeah, I guess it's just because I've played Galaxy multiple times before this, and so I just have this... It's just kind of built into the way that I enjoy that game. I don't know, there is something satisfying about just a quick flick of the wrist and it happens, and it obviously is not as precise or good as the Y button, and certainly in that final Bowser fight I did use the Y button for some of those back and forth pinging him on his shell, but yeah, it was definitely one I didn't use as much. I want to go to Rachel as well, who also... I did the thing that I did, which was the 242 stars, but let's start with her first thoughts, which were, here we are, the real star of 3D All-Stars, Super Mario Galaxy. Of all the Mario games I've played, of all the times I've worked Bowser's scaly behind and saved the day, this is my favourite. Or so I thought. For context, this game really is a milestone for a time when gaming, and Nintendo games in particular, had really become my main hobby. Not just playing the games themselves, but everything that went with that. From reading the state propaganda of official Nintendo magazine and frequenting their forums, to lunchtime DS multiplayer sessions and game discussions with school friends, I was a Mario fan, and this was the Mario game. The biggest release for the Wii and in general. It was the first Mario game I bought on release, and the first I beat and collected every star while it was part of the zeitgeist. I loved it more than I had any game to that point. Of the 3 games in this collection, Mario 64 is clearly the most important historically, but Galaxy is the most important for me. And I think that's pretty mirroring of our experiences, down to going to O&M forums, you know?
Yeah,
back
exactly.
in the day. Although we hung out on the Pokemon forums of O&M mostly.
Yeah.
I never really went to the other parts of them. It was, I don't know, there wasn't as much of a community feel, it felt, around the other parts of that forum. But obviously when Galaxy was out, it was probably getting talked about a whole bunch. People were discussing it. But then I want to talk about the 242 stars, which is what I did back in the day, that maybe kind of broke me. And Rachel says, there's one thing I never did, and that's beat the game with Luigi again to get 242 stars. So fresh off getting every blue coin in Sunshine, that's exactly what I did. It's testament to any game, even the best of the best, for me to want to play it again right away. And really, this is the one of the very small few that I would do that for. I'm not going to lie, maybe in hindsight I should have left it a while before going back for the Luigi playthrough, as by the time I was well into getting every Luigi star, some of the shine had gone from what is otherwise a wondrous game. Things like lives and checkpointing, since improved in Odyssey, or some of the more finicky motion controls, such as in the levels where Mario rides on a ball, just grate that bit more the second time around. The sort of things that knock a 10 out of 10 down to a 9. And yeah, I mirror that experience back when I did it, right? Like, I think that the idea of having played it relatively recently back in the day and then just doing a full Let's Play. I think the Let's Play thing is the other added stress of it, as I already mentioned, of, you know, just doing a game, being on all the time and having your skill being on display constantly and having to make sure you're doing it and getting through it. There's this thing that happens when I play Let's Plays sometimes back in the day where my brain was so involved in what I was playing, but I also had to get words out of my mouth, so just a bunch of nonsense is just coming out of my mouth. I'm just talking without any real thought for what I'm saying, and it ends up with commentary that is a little weird in some senses.
I know it might not have been fun to edit, but I do think your Ice Bats video of that Let's Play is one of your best ever Let's Play videos. And you do this thing where you're like, right, sometimes you just give up on talking and you just react to your deaths. So, and then later you'll edit together all the deaths, basically.
Yes, yeah.
And that is just fun. That's just a fun Let's Play thing to watch.
Great. It's good to watch.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's not fun to record. Part of my, when I was doing Twilight Princess more regularly, I guess, like, I came back to it to do the Yeti snowboarding thing.
There was a time when you did it more regularly.
There was a time. I came back to do the Yeti snowboarding thing, and
that is a good. That and Ice Bats are the 2 best episodes ever.
That fucking snowboarding thing, I swear to God, took a 3-hour recording session, and the video is maybe 15 to 20 minutes long. It is excruciating. Like, just making that was fucking excruciating, to the extent that I think I took 2 years off of Twilight Princess after that video. But anyway, I think the point here is, with the 242 stars, is that I think it's a fun thing. I think it's neat that you can do it and play as Luigi, but really, it's one of those things that feels unnecessary, right? Like, it's just the same game again, but you're Luigi, and there's not a huge difference to how Luigi plays. He has slight differences, but for the most part, he is just a different coloured Mario.
Can you remember who you save in those saving Luigi missions in the mansion?
Oh, goodness, I can't remember, no.
I want to say, could be wrong, I think there's 2 Luigis and you save
Maybe
yourself.
there is 2 Luigis and Luigi saves himself.
Yeah.
I think that is the case. Yeah, I don't think they thought ahead that much with it. I think they were just like, here's a fun thing at the end of the game, plays Luigi. And I mean, Mario games tend to do that. 3D Land, you had to beat the entire game as Mario and Luigi, get to the top of the flagpole in every level, get all the comet medals in every level, just to get the very final challenge in that game. And that game is much shorter, much breezier. So it's not as big a deal, but still, it's something that Nintendo likes to do. I think is just fucking put Luigi at the end. You love Luigi. Cool. So should we get into some of the game itself and some of the levels and talk a bit more about them?
Sure.
So this game is a bit different to talk about, and it's a little weird just because each level, I would say, is much shorter and smaller in scope in some ways, larger in others, but it's more about throwing more ideas at the wall versus having these individual levels broken up into different spaces. Because you don't like jump into a painting or into a wall or whatever this time. It is, you go into a dome, and inside the dome you kind of pull yourself up on the blue stars, which are consistent throughout the game and are the one thing that I would realize, oh my goodness, there's so many of these. This is one of the mandatory motion control things that I hadn't remembered, was the blue stars that you kind of cling to, and then you can use the momentum of them to fling you forward and backwards. A lot of the times you're using those blue stars to like avoid explodey things or stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's an entire race where you're racing a boo, where you have to just navigate an entire maze of this stuff.
Like, I generally think they are a really good way of implementing a bit of motion controls and mixing up the gameplay. I never really got bored of them, honestly. I quite like them.
Yeah, I don't know. They felt, after a point, I was like, these are just a little bit redundant in a sense. There's not much interest to them mechanically. It's
just an alternative method of, like I was saying, linking one level to another.
Yeah.
That wasn't a jump star thing.
Totally, yeah. And I get it, but it's, I don't think they hold up quite as well. So yeah, each of these domes contains multiple levels, but there's mainly only 2 or 3 big levels, and then the rest is a boss fight plus a bonus type of stage, right? And I don't know how you feel about the structure generally, Bally, because like a lot of I got pretty much every main star in the game, which is to say 3 stars in all the levels that had main stars, and then all the individual bonus ones, as well as the Hungry Luma ones that appear outside. Mm-hmm. And that got me to a total of about 71. So there's about 50 stars here, which are either hidden ones or comet stars. And that's probably in keeping in some ways with the other Mario games. Like, how many in Sunshine are dedicated to blue coins? Probably about that many. Maybe a few less than that.
Yeah, I think it was like 30 or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I would say Mario 64 is the least egregious here, because it's 100 coins really is the thing that gets you extra bonus stars there.
I think it's got like 1,500 coin levels, and everything else is a regular star.
There are a few castle ones, like the one at the top of the castle where you have to shoot around the clouds, as well as the slide and things like that. So there are a few castle stars, and the one under the moat. But of all these 3 games, I got the most stars in 64, weirdly enough, versus, these other 2, because I think these other 2 just have less core stars that the player has to get in order to finish the game. And not to say that you have to get those stars in 64, but because each level has like 7, it felt more necessary for me to get all of the core stars, because frankly, these other ones that happen for Galaxy, they're either do it really quick or do it in other ways. Do you have the different comets up, Bally, of what they do?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. So you've got the speedy comets, where it requires you to complete a level within a certain time limit. You've got the Daredevil comet, where you only have 1 health hit point, which is normally a boss fight, but sometimes it's something else.
I tell you what, that fucking rock guy with the Daredevil, that's one that I remember strongly as not having a good time with.
Somehow I did that first time this time. It was the other ones I struggled on. It was just, you've got the Cosmic Comets, where Mario races against Cosmic Mario, which is straight out of Mario Sunshine.
It is the same as what Celeste does, right? Where your shadow follows your exact movements. Is that how it works? I seem to remember that being the case.
I don't think this one follows your movements.
Because I remember a purple coin mission where you're going across the flipping kind of lava poison water, and he's following your movements as you go along, so you have to make sure not to run into yourself as you come back to the beginning.
There's a different game he does follow your movements.
Maybe I'm thinking of Galaxy 2, because I think, maybe in 3D Land they do that as well. They definitely do it in 3D Land.
And then you've got the fast foe comets, which are basically enemies move extra fast. So this is normally based around levels with thwomps and moving boxes.
Right. Yes.
And then you've got the purple comets, which don't actually appear until you've done the rest of the comets, which is annoying in my view. Because as I said, I went for 120. And I was on 98 stars before I fought Bowser, and I got to 98 stars. And that's actually when I went and spoke to Rosalina to read her storybook, because I thought, is there something I need to click to trigger, the next thing to happen to get these purple comets to appear? But no, it wasn't. You just have to go face Bowser, beat the game, come back in, and then the purple coins will appear on the sort of comet rotation. There's like a Luma you can speak to, and they will move the comet for 20 star bits. So one gripe I have with the purple coin star, and there's different types of purple coin stars, I should say. Some of them you're just collecting them in a general bowl area. Others, it's like a linear timed thing, and others it's just linear but it's not timed sort of thing. So it's like a combination. But yeah, you can only do those purple comets after
finishing the game,
which is annoying, because I would have happily just done one at the end of each level, because doing them all at the end of the game means you're doing like 15 purple coin missions.
They're all back to back almost. Yeah,
if that's all you have left, obviously, which for many people that will be the case. So it's a bit of a shame that they did that.
Yes, it's frustrating, and I think you can mitigate that if you knew beforehand by just going and beating the game and then coming back and having a bit more variety to spice in there. But of course that didn't end up being the case for you, unfortunately. So this first one, the Terrace Dome, this kind of just sets the stage, right? Like, we have the first galaxy, which is Good Egg, which I would say is in the mold of what the new kind of format they're going for with these levels, which is one area, and then you shoot off to the next area, you shoot off to the next area, and you do little things in between. Enemies, for the most part, feel a little bit redundant when it comes to some of these places. There are definitely moments where you have to kill a certain number of enemies in order to, unlock the star to go to the next area. But for the most part, they're, I guess, a bit of an annoyance. And I guess throughout, we've kind of talked about this throughout the whole 3D Mario series, is like figuring out enemies in their role and what they do has been maybe a bit of an issue. And I think that's why Odyssey...
They just kind of roam around all these levels not doing
and I think that's why Odyssey kind of like nails it, because they're there and they're annoying, but then you can take control of them yourselves, and so they become tools in the level, right? They become puzzle-solving elements, and so it's not just that you're killing enemies, it's you're actually using enemies for other reasons, which is really neat. So, what do you think about Good Egg Galaxy and Honey Hive Galaxy? These are the first kind of two core ones we get. I think Honey Hive it's kind of a throwback to 64 in a way, right? Because it feels more like a space that you can go and explore and go to different places of. But it also does the thing when you go into the level from a different star, where it does completely change in the sense that you can only go to this place versus this place. There's the level where all of it's on the kind of wooden rooftops above. There's the part where you go over to the Queen, like you do have different parts of the level that you're exploring, and you can't really do a thorough deep dive into it in the same way that you could in these other games.
Yeah, and I do like that, because it felt like one of the only reasons you were able to do it in the other games was to get the 100 gold coins, and not having to do the 100 gold coins I think is quite refreshing. Like I should say, I massively prefer the purple coin levels to 100 coin levels.
Yeah, I totally agree, yeah.
But yeah, Good Egg Galaxy, Honey Hive. Good Egg, I think, is just... It's just them showcasing the space style and the orchestral music. Like, it's a big deal of just... It's all about the wonder and running upside down for the first time and seeing...
It sets the tone, really.
Sets the tone, totally. And it's got like a fun, cool, Petey Piranha style fight with Dino Piranha, who I think is a fun boss, honestly. And there's also King Caliente, I believe, who's
that's the first iteration of him.
Yeah, the octopus where you're playing Ganon tennis, which is always fun, which I think works really well. So some really simple bosses, but nice ones, and some like a spectacular kind of art style for this level. And then I do think Honey Hive is like the first introduction of one of the new costumes, which is obviously Bee Mario, which is a cool costume generally, and I think this game, we've not really talked about the costumes yet, we can get there, but like there's some really good ones in here, especially when you compare it to the fact that Sunshine just has nozzles basically, and we talked about how 64 has its sort of 3 caps that aren't utilized a ton and aren't overly fun to use. I think these costumes genuinely feel like fun, and I do actually think that's improved in Galaxy 2 as well.
Definitely, and there's a difference between the new costumes that Mario has versus the old power-ups that he gains, because you do get fire flowers and ice flowers in this game, but they work much differently because they're on a timer. And they disappear after a certain amount of time, so you do have to be much more careful with those. Versus these ones, you do have to be careful with, especially with B Mario not going in the water, because that will just completely get rid of your costume. And I kept forgetting about that when I was fighting the big bug guy at the end there. But yeah, it's definitely something you need to keep an eye on and make sure you're figuring out. And I do enjoy the bosses, and they're neat, like, little distractions, but for the most part, they are kind of laughably easy, right? Like, they don't provide much of a challenge. And to be honest, like, has any Mario 3D boss ever provided much of a challenge? I don't think so.
Yeah, I was going to say, in my mind, I always had Galaxy bosses as really easy and Sunshine bosses as much harder. And having played these games back to back, Galaxy's marginally easier maybe, but not that much easier.
They're all kind of much of a muchness, really. I think it stems from the Mario 64 thing of just get around the back of him and or on the thwomp, just like let him fall down and slam on the back. Like, it's all very simple stuff.
And I do think Galaxy 2 steps up bosses in a really nice way, and I think Odyssey's bosses are just fantastic. Like,
Odyssey just has fucking spectacle for its bosses more than anything else. Not that they're super hard, but yes, I really appreciate that kind of change to them. Like the big bug, you just slam on his back a bunch of times, and they make it a bit tricky. That was one of the more tricky ones I found in some senses. I don't know, do you fight that one in a fast comic or anything? You don't have to redo any of those, I don't think.
Big bad Bugaboom.
I don't think so.
I can't
think
remember.
You just do him once. Because there's another one with the mole, where there's a mole boss in that similar vein of just going around a circle, and ground pounding.
Yeah, you've got 1 health for him, but not the big bug.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then this Galaxy also has, this dome has 2 smaller levels. One of them, which is like, okay, so when I did Flip Switch Galaxy, I was like, are you fucking serious? Is that it? This one is literally, it's introducing the concept of the switches where they turn blue to yellow. And you literally just do like 10 of these on a thing which is, it's kind of like a half of a square, with 3 sides of a cube, I guess. 3 sides of a cube where there's some kind of electric circles being pushed out, and there's some enemies in the way, some kind of spiky kind of platforms going back and forth. But all in all, you just kind of just step on all of them, and then that's a start. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're just doing this one little thing that in any other level in Galaxy would be one area you land on, then you go to the next area to land on, but it's just this single area. And I guess it makes sense for the start of the game, but I was a little bit like, okay.
Well, one thing I thought Galaxy 1 did have in it were flip switches, and it doesn't actually, I mean, sorry, no. This one is called Flip Switch.
It's
Galaxy,
called Flip Switch, but it's what it means is
not
different.
What I think of as Flip Switch, which is the one where you do a spin jump and it goes from red to blue. I believe they must have been introduced in Galaxy 2 in that case.
Yes, I think so. One of my favourite ideas from Galaxy 2.
Yeah, and that continued on into 3D Land and World, and I don't think it came back in Odyssey. Maybe it did. I can't remember.
Yeah, in 3D Land and World, I believe they were on timers as opposed to your own controlling, because there's no spin jump in those games. So that's the way they made it work.
No, they are linked to the jump. I think it's literally just linked
maybe it's
to
just the jump.
Single jump, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that is the case.
Which gives you a lot less control than having it with the spin jump, but yeah.
Totally,
and
yes.
then obviously 3D Land and World also have the timed blocks as well.
Yes.
Which are cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, this is like Mario Galaxy for babies.
Right, yeah. No, I totally get it. It read a bit weird when I was first starting the game. I was like, wait, really? I got a star for doing that? Okay, I guess so. And yeah, that was kind of the case there. The Loop-de-Loop Galaxy is where we kind of get introduced to, okay, here's some mandatory motion controls going on. So we have a few of these style of levels where you are forced to get out your control, your Wii remote at the time, it was a big deal, and you have to take this manta ray through a course. Now, Bally, I know you did the harder one later on, and I remember that one being pretty tricky, How did you find both of these, and do they hold up in any way, or do you think that these are the kind of more dinosaur-y elements of Galaxy?
They do feel a little dinosaur-y. They don't feel like they control particularly well with the Joy-Con, but I don't think I could argue they can control that well with the Wiimote either. I just feel they're kind of a thing of their time, and to their credit, I do think they give you a large window when it comes to the time in order to get the star. Like, it's more so about not falling off than it is about being fast, which I think helps. But give me a slide from Mario 64 over this any day.
Totally. I agree. They look really nice. Like, but part of the thing I really love about this level design is, a lot of people don't realize that the team that made Mario Galaxy, the game they worked on before was Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. And Jungle Beat is a game that introduces so many ideas that then get used in Mario Galaxy, and I don't think many people know about it. But this whole idea of just water floating in space, and like moving through it to move to another area, that does get used later on in another Galaxy level. But this idea of this entire race course just being this just piece of water that's just floating there and just existing, and so it just has a really cool look to it. I really like the visual of it and the way that it's kind of set up.
I think the water generally, especially when it's floating in space, and as you say, there's loads of levels like that in Galaxy, is a real highlight of the visual aspects of this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
One Galaxy that's not on your list but is kind of linked to the Terrace is the Luma for the Terrace, which is Sweet Galaxy Rocky Road.
Yeah, this is the one I remember from when I was younger being like, damn, this is awesome. I was so into
cool
this level.
It's kind of hard that early on in the game as well. Like, I did fall off a couple of times. Like, it's basically just fruit and candy and stuff and holes that you have to avoid falling through and moving.
There's
panels.
A giant cake at the end.
There's a cake, It's just like, this is Mario Party in Mario Galaxy game kind of thing, it feels like.
Yeah. Right, and like this is where I maybe noticed, and there's other levels that do this as well. Flip Switch Galaxy, I noted it as well. Is it does the Mario Sunshine thing of having weird backgrounds that aren't space, of like, the background is just an 8-bit Mario, and I was like, wait a second, I remember all of this being a space background, but it's not. They actually do weird stuff with the backgrounds. In some of these bonus levels.
It's like maybe this was the leftover level from one of those floodless levels, and they're like, hey, let's use it in Mario Galaxy now.
Yeah, that Sweet Treat Galaxy I remember when I was younger finding real tricky, and I was so elated when I beat it, because I was like...
It's so early in the game, it's crazy.
Yeah, especially when we were that age of like not being great at 3D movement and platforming. It was a much bigger challenge, but still holds up, and one of my favorite levels actually in this game overall. It's just a really neat thing. But if we're talking about motion controls, I just want to bring in For Adaptability, who had comments about the camera and controls in general. And he says, having made significantly more progress in this playthrough, I was able to appreciate the game's generous checkpoint system, as well as the abundance of one-ups due to, in part, star bits, which is another true thing. It's like, you get 100 and you get an extra one-up, right, with star bits.
I think it's 50, actually.
Is it? Wow, that's crazy.
That's part of the reason we were racking up the one-ups is it's 50.
That's insane. He says, my minimal gripes have to do with motion control levels that require moving the Joy-Con to steer Mario's movement, as well as the overall limited control of the camera. 64's camera is far from perfect, but allows the player to view the stage from multiple angles without having to use the first-person camera. Odyssey absolutely nails this with its 360 controls. All in all, Galaxy is charming not only for its gameplay, but its use of flagship power-ups like the Fire Flower in a 3D setting, an attempted backstory for Rosalina, and an orchestrated soundtrack. So yeah, all things that we've kind of talked about, but I think...
Sorry, chat camera.
The camera is an interesting one because... I've never been someone who is against the camera of Mario Galaxy, and even in this game, it was very rare that I felt... Still now, it was very rare that I felt the need to change the camera angle, because I've always said that Nintendo does it for you, right? Like, you just move and they will put the camera where it's supposed to be, and this, depends on what level it is. Some levels you would like to move it around a tiny bit, but when I am wanting that, the game generally lets me do it for the most part.
Generally, I agree. I would love that second stick control, which obviously you couldn't have done with the Wiimote. That's the sort of thing, if this game was properly remastered, you would just insert. I think that would be something that would be much nicer, and I obviously think the camera in like Sunshine and Odyssey is better as a result, just because you have that whole stick to control it. I do think that, and we've not talked about swimming levels yet, but I think when you're underwater in particular, the camera can get real jank. And
absolutely, that is my one hang up with this game. The camera underwater is garbage, fucking trash.
Because all those nice things where Nintendo know where the camera should be when you're on land, which work 90% of the time, I'd argue, kind of all goes out the window when you're underwater. And because we're going to talk about, shall we talk about underwater, or should we wait till
we'll wait till we get to one of those levels. I think
I'll save this rant for then. But
yeah. Cool. And then I think the Bowser robot was the final boss of this area.
So cool.
Was the moment when I was replaying this game and I had it crisp 1080p on my monitor. I was in awe. I was like, holy shit, this thing is huge. And it does evoke the Shadow of the Colossus idea, because you do climb up the top of it, and then, it's very easy and it's kind of like breezy, but there is a sense of scale and grandeur, and the music as well. It's just, you stand there, you're tiny Mario, you're looking up, this huge planet surrounds you, and this enormous fucking mech with its two legs. It's one of my favorite moments in this game, absolutely.
I almost think this level started as a tower, and then they turned it into a robot.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not overly convinced it was always a robot and a boss that you climbed up, but it is really cool that you climb up it, and then there's bullet bills at the top, and you're like kind of tricking the bullet. I think that's a great mechanic that repeats itself a lot.
Yes, it does. It comes back quite a lot of taking the bullet bills and
it's good fun.
Smashing open glass and things like that.
It's great.
Yeah.
I really, really cool first boss.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's probably the most awe-inspiring thing in the game. I definitely took screenshots of that as well, and I was like, wow, man, I've seen this twice before and like years ago, but it still somehow has this big impact. And I think that's one of the great things that Galaxy still is able to pull off, is that sense of awe and wonder at just these huge things. The next one is the Fountain Dome. Should we talk quickly, I guess, about the hub world and the overworld?
Sure.
Because it's not something we've really addressed yet, but going from, dome to dome is definitely a thing we're kind of getting into at this point. I want to take a comment from Maitreya, who said, seeing as I have a strange obsession with hub worlds, I guess it's worth pointing out that I think the Galaxy Hub is a huge step down from 64 and Sunshine. It no longer functions as its own mini-world to practice moving around in, and doesn't allow for much exploration, which in turn allows the devs to hide in secrets for the player to find between worlds. And generally, this is, we'll see the full transformation when we get to Galaxy 2, but that is just literally Mario's face and there's nothing else, and you just it's basically a level select menu. This is like the half step between that, where it's kind of stripped out all the personality and there's nothing.
It feels so pointless as a result.
Yeah, there's places where you can go and get mushrooms. There are definitely some hidden one-up mushrooms around the stage. And also later on in the game, when you get the red star, you can fly around it. So it does offer a bit of practice for the flight mechanic. But aside from that,
which is not utilized much in this game.
Barely at all. Aside from that, it's not really a playground for you to practice your side jumps or your long jumps around anything. There's not much galaxy-ness in that area because it doesn't have much gravity stuff going on.
Yeah, I agree. It's the worst of both worlds. Either make it bigger and you explore it, or do what Galaxy 2 does and make it small and it almost doesn't matter. It's just like a little hub area to walk around a bit. It's slightly too big to be a basic hub area to walk around, but then at the same time too small to bother exploring. And you do get the shortcuts to get to the hubs, and that's fine, but then it's like, why not just have a row of 5 doors I can walk in,
Exactly, yeah, it does, especially some of those levels that take you back to the center with Rosalina, and you're like, why? Just put me back where I was.
I even think visually Galaxy 2's hub world is cooler and nicer to look at. I know it's Mario's head floating in space, but it still looks really cool, and this just looks like this weird contraption. Well, it's Rosalina's spaceship, right? But it's like this weird contraption that just doesn't feel like it overly fits the universe, and I'm not delighted to be there. It's
especially like the final cutscene where it turns into an egg or whatever.
Yes, that is a long ass cutscene, by the way.
It's like this giant shield, and it's got a giant point at the top of it because it's a spaceship, and then it just has a egg shape to it and is burrowing into a thing, and it's just really weird. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get to that at the end of the game. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. I take Galaxy 2's world over this any day, just because it's more honest about what it really is. It's like, look, guys, we're just a menu select. Just fucking go select the level, you know?
And I gotta say, Delfino Plaza is still the king of this category, I gotta say. It's
much as I hate to admit
nice.
it, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. But I think 64 has more fun secrets, though, because you find the slide and you find the other things. I actually think.
Are you saying that the lily pads and pachinko are not fun secrets?
Yes, fun, not words I would describe there necessarily. Secrets, sure.
To Sunshine's credit, it's got like some fun turbo nozzle secrets. I do think.
Yeah, like one.
There's a couple, but there's not enough. I agree.
Not enough. Great. So the Fountain Dome is the next one, where we get Space Junk Galaxy, which, if we're talking about just throwing shit at the wall, this is exactly what this is about, right? Like, it's just a bunch of weird stuff. This is one of my least memorable ones, I think, and I totally forgot about the spider level, the spider boss, where you're like flinging yourself. That's another, like, we keep coming across these things. I'm like, oh yeah, that was another motion controlled thing that they added into this game. This one I do kind of like, actually, the idea of like pulling on these sticky spider web things and flinging Mario across. I actually do find that pretty satisfying.
It's one of those levels, and this is harsh because it's a criticism of Galaxy that I don't know the solution to, and that is that when you go upside down or around a planet and the controls change, it can sometimes catch you off guard, or Mario starts going in the opposite direction to what you intend.
Or sometimes he just keeps running in a circle. Maybe that's a Joy-Con thing.
Or he runs in a circle, and I'm going to say I don't know enough about developing, but I can imagine it's incredibly difficult to try and program for like going upside down and spherical objects to walk around. So
yeah, honestly, I have no idea how they fucking made this game. It's just magic.
Exactly. So,
really.
But I would say with this boss, you will sometimes be where it is a race against time to avoid like its poison shoots or whatever, like it's spraying at you. And you will sometimes start running the opposite direction and walk straight into poison. It's like, okay, game, that felt a bit harsh. You need to help me out here, sort of thing. So, yeah, it is a good boss fight generally. It's just that one issue which comes back a few times in Galaxy. It's a minor thing, but it's a bit annoying.
Yeah, this level also has the airship stuff, which I generally think is okay. It's not that interesting, though.
I mean, that airship could have been dragged in as a boss in literally any level in the game.
Right. I mean, Bowser Jr. just comes along whenever when he feels like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole fighting the Magic Koopa lady, it happens a couple of times. I'm not a huge fan of that boss fight generally. The worst one is in the ship that's in the water that you get to, and you have to fight her up on the high platform at the end.
You've got to do that fight as a Daredevil at one point where you have one health. That was the hardest Daredevil, I'd say, actually.
Oh, fuck.
The one I died the most on.
That's part of the reason I didn't want to do the 120 stars, is because I remember Daredevil stuff, and I was like, I don't want to go put myself through this shit. It's not fun. Like, I was so close to fucking that up with one health remaining on that fight.
Because it's kind of bullet hell-y, and bullet hell with one health is a bit miserable.
Yes, and I think part of it is I found it really tricky, I don't know if you did, to jump on the shell while it's rolling around to get it, because that really helps.
You can just do a spin.
You don't have to, but it really, I found actually the timing wise, exactly when the shell stops on that harder one later on is when she shoots out the fire, and so your animation of picking up the shell is slow enough to where she shoots the fire and you can't move quick enough to move out the way of it.
You pick it up quicker if you spin than if you...
I thought that only happened underwater. That's why I wasn't spinning.
Yeah, you can spin on land. You can literally... So she'll do a cast and you can see it's a shell coming because it's like a green and white matter almost. Right. And then if you spin into the green and white matter, the shell will just appear in Mario's hand.
Damn, that would have been real helpful. Because I was just trying to jump on it as it's going around, bonking around. And that was really hard. So... that would have been a lot easier. Yeah, I kind of just had this assumption because I did use the spin thing underwater when I was getting
They
shells.
tie so much to that spin jump in this game, like as you say, underwater to pick up shells, spin into them, and you can just spin without a shell underwater as well.
But yeah, I would say this is one of my less favorite levels. I mean, it starts off with a bunch of pull stars, which again I don't think are great.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it's called Space Junk, and it's very clear they've just taken random objects that they've put together.
Yeah.
It's a weird level, but I mean, having said that, the theme of space junk kind of works, and it's a clever way of inserting weird stuff into a game like Mario Galaxy.
Yeah, I guess that's why the weird Yoshi head works in this level, because that's where it shows up. Because it's like, I don't know, here's a fucking wooden Yoshi's head. Someone carved this, I guess, and it's just sitting here.
I thought wooden Yoshi's head was in one of the tropical levels later.
No, it's the hidden star in this level.
Okay.
So that's how you get it. Yeah, and then we have Rolling Green, which I think is that's the one that's the single one-off motion control one, where you control the ball, that you then do later on again as well.
Yeah.
Not too bad, this one. I think like you just kind of hold it like a joystick, like a kind of classic arcade joystick, and it tends to work. It definitely doesn't feel great, but I don't think it feels bad either.
It's almost like it's not meant to feel great. It's meant to feel wobbly and bad, and it certainly does.
They're kind of just trying to be monkey ball, essentially, is what's happening here.
I think it does its job, and I'm glad it doesn't overstay its welcome, and in that sense I do think it kind of works.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then similar to the flip switch one, there's Hurry Scurry Galaxy, which is one where you're just in a giant hexagon and the paths are disappearing and you just need to collect the notes, I think. And then you just fall into the center and get the star. So once again, it's just one of those things that would be a nice closer to a level or just one moment in a level. But I think some of these, they were like, well, we need a bit more in this dome because we've only got...
But there's literally this same one is in a spin-off star in a later galaxy.
Right, totally. So that like shows the point here, which is like, I don't know, we're just going to... Maybe it's just trying to introduce these ideas early on in the game so that the player is more familiar with them later when they show up as part of a larger level, right? Because that certainly happens with Flip Switch. It certainly happens with this as well, the disappearing platform stuff. So so that would be my guess, is like it's kind of a primer for the player to have a new mechanic thrown in there among the... Because I tended to stay in the same level to do all 3 stars and then move to the next one.
Too.
But you can bounce between them, and it does offer more variety to do that. So I think these kind of standout bonus levels are nice to just add a bit of flavor to them. And then we have Battle Rock Galaxy, which I think cements this as probably my least favorite dome generally, because I don't like Battle Rock Galaxy. Especially, I think part of it is PTSD from the Purple Coin mission back in the day. But it also has the worst hidden star.
Are you sure you're not getting Battle Rock confused with its bigger, badder brother and the final
one.
Galaxy?
Yeah, the final one.
Which is
I don't
Dreadnought
think so.
Galaxy. Because Dreadnought Galaxy has 2 versions of stars from Battle Rock that are made harder. One of those is the bombs, where you're having to blow up the rubbish.
Oh, God, sucks.
So they have an easy version of that in Battle Rock that they then make longer and tougher in Dreadnought. And the other one is the Purple Coin Star. So Purple Coin Star in Battle Rock, you're going under, you're doing these things.
Oh, shit.
And then Dreadnought, they repeat it, but make it much harder.
Oh, good. Yeah, probably both. I mean, both of them were bad.
I found the first one pretty easy, but Dreadnought was one of the hardest Purple Coin Stars.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually when you look at these levels. There are some levels which are just the same idea, but then they get harder later on, right? Yeah. You do have Honey Hive Galaxy being reprised later on.
They do a little mirror mode deal with that one.
It's Gold Leaf Galaxy. It's basically the same galaxy, and then you have the same with Dreadnought Galaxy being basically the same as Battle Rock Galaxy in some senses. Obviously, the level design is different and stuff, but it is interesting that it's not the same as what Mario 64 does with like having 2 ice levels or whatever, but it's similar enough in that sense, right? Of they have this one theme that they just want to continue, but they didn't want to. The thing with Galaxy is it's much more about variety and moving on and speed, and I think that does help with its pace quite a bit. But it means that they're kind of splitting up ideas across the game so that you kind of get more difficult versions later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts on Battle Rock Galaxy? Because that garbage dump one is one that I deliberately avoided. I saw the Luma and I was like, wait, I know exactly what this is. I'm never doing that garbage dump shit again. I fucking hate it.
You avoided. Honestly, that one's fine. It's the later one that's tricky.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember what it was like. But
I like this Galaxy. I think there's like a Topsy spinning top boss, which I think is quite fun, who also comes back.
Yeah, again, very, very easy. And then even the harder one later on is even still really easy. But, you know, it's...
But there's also
neat.
like just some really nice explosion effects and things where you're flying around in this one. Maybe that's more so Dreadnought, but I quite like it. It's kind of like that mechanical industrial kind of theme they're going for.
Yeah, definitely. It's got some cool stuff in it. I just think that some of the, maybe it's just because I have PTSD from the past, but I maybe retroactively dislike the stuff that goes on in that galaxy.
Yeah.
And then we have the boss, the final boss here,
This
which
is the first Bowser fight.
It's the first Bowser fight, yeah. And let's talk about the Bowser fight generally.
They're great.
They're quite good, yeah. I had memories of the final one being a lot worse than it ended up being when I did it.
I died on the final one once, but
okay.
it is the hardest of the bunch by quite a way because there's so many phases, but it's not overly bad.
Yeah, I managed to have 5 health left at the end of the final fight, so there you go.
Poor,
I have done it a lot of times, though, and I remember dying a lot on it when I was doing my playthrough back in the day. But yes, it definitely, I was prepared for the long haul because I remember it going from planet to planet to planet, and I couldn't remember, but actually the first 2 phases of the very final one are different from the final phase. The final phase is the same as the first 2 times you fight him, which is he does his... his little beams that go out and you have to jump over the beams, and then he does his fire breath, and then he starts jumping in the air and you have to bait him onto a platform to break it.
He's also got like a very fast spinning shell.
Yes, so once you hit his tail, he just spins around, which is... and then you just keep spinning him, which is fun because he just goes round back, and you you project where he's going to be relative to where you are because of the circular nature of the planet, and then you knock him out. So yeah, overall, I would say this is probably my least favorite dome overall if we're just talking about all the stars within it. But it still has some decent stuff in there, and you introduce the tops, who are pretty neat. Overall. I just want to bring a thing about level design here because Maitreya mentions... his favorite part of the game. I love the level design of Galaxy. I think the peaks of 64 and Sunshine are fantastic, but they're so bloody inconsistent, whereas Galaxy just hits with these very good worlds consistently. I personally think Nintendo feel more at home designing these controlled, smaller areas of more focused platforming, aided by greater use of platforming gimmicks and power-ups, which always keep the game feeling super fresh. And I think that idea, as we've mentioned, of having the smaller levels in there is a point on Nintendo's favor for just freshening things up and keeping it moving and keeping things a little bit interesting every time you enter a new place.
It's interesting. If Nintendo had the tools to do it, I honestly think a game like Mario 64 would have looked a lot like Sunshine. And what I mean by that is 64 is ultimately 15
Galaxy, you mean? You said like Sunshine.
Sorry, I mean... What did I say initially?
You said you think Mario 64 would look like Sunshine.
What I meant to say was Mario 64 would look like Mario Galaxy.
Right.
And what I mean by that is 64 is ultimately constrained by, hey, look, we're going to make 15 dioramas, and within those 15 dioramas, there's going to be like 6 stars within each one that we're going to work out. I think in an ideal world, Nintendo would have always gone to a more Galaxy kind of 3D world. Let's just take cool level designs and put them together earlier than they necessarily did. It's almost like Galaxy was there coming to Jesus kind of moment of finally we've got the tools where we can do what we exactly wanted to do. And you get hints of that with the floodless levels in Sunshine, but I think that feels like ultimately what they wanted 3D Mario to always be. And I think that Odyssey is then another level of that where they're like, actually, you can incorporate these things into a wider open world in like a new, unique way, although that's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think, they, in some ways, did that in Odyssey, because they do have a lot of unique stuff within that game alongside the open areas. And they maybe found a nice medium now. But
totally, yeah.
But yes, overall, that's the Fountain Dome, and the next one, Kitchen Dome, has let's talk about water levels. But let's get into the shit, okay? Beach Ball Galaxy, simultaneously my favorite and least favorite level, because it's gorgeous. Oh my goodness, I love this setting. It's so chill. The penguins and
just a bowl of water is fantastic. I love it.
Oh, it's just the sandiness of the beach and the penguin just chilling out, and the music is so upbeat. It's a really really nice space to exist in, and then you go underwater and you're like, what the fuck is this? I remember underwater being a little awkward when I was younger, but I don't think I remember it feeling this slow and bad. If you think Mario walks slowly on land, wait till you fucking move him underwater, because he's like molasses under there. Just can't even get anywhere. You do use the spin to help you get a bit of a boost, but unless you have a shell that is really the way to get movement and speed underwater, it just feels so hard to like get him to go down, like just slightly get the shard piece that's down there and just collect it. Oh, it just feels like you're just wrestling all the time.
What they require you to do underwater doesn't fit the moveset. And what I mean by that is, I think the tight turns, the Mario, when he's not got a shell or spinning, you're right, he's just really awkward and it's difficult to maneuver. And when you're trying to get a little star piece that's next to him, but you need to get over and it's really awkward, it doesn't work. But I think the underwater movement works at its best when you're doing lots of spinning back to back or you're holding a shell. So when it comes to like some of the later water levels where you're like racing against like a killer whale or something, I think like the big arching movements work really well. Whether you're spinning consistently or have a shell, it works well. It's when you're being asked to collect things and do tight turns all of a sudden that it becomes this really awkward, as you say, molasses kind of feeling thing. But I do actually think that the larger movements, the overarching movements underwater, especially when you've got a shell or you're using the spin a lot, feel quite good.
I wouldn't say they feel good. I feel they make it feel more palatable, right? Like I felt better underwater having the shell, but then I was always in fear of running into it and losing the shell and therefore losing all of the kind of good momentum I had. Yeah. Which especially comes in later when you're doing races and stuff like that, or even following after the shark and his kind of circles as he goes around. But yeah, kind of some simple stars in Beach Ball Galaxy. I don't think it has that much interesting going on overall. Any thoughts?
There's like some sort of secret thing that you go to and then it catapults you like out of the water that I think is a really cool effect. Like, yes. I can't remember what one that is, but it's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
The secret undersea cavern, that's the one.
Yes, yeah. There's some neat stuff in there, but again, it's one of those that introduces an idea that you'll probably be even more frustrated with later on, which is of course underwater. Everything goes along.
Quite a lot of water in this game.
Yeah. Ghostly Galaxy. I think what I'm finding, Bally, is going through these Mario games again is I kind of like the Haunted Mansion levels.
This is a very good one.
Really enjoyed the going back to 64 and playing that level. I was like, actually, this is a great level, a level I never wanted to interact with as a kid. Actually has some really good level design, and this one, the Ghostly Galaxy, is pretty cool. It has some neat stuff in it. It has the booze, obviously, and it has some... I feel like this one has a bit of the side-scrolling upside-down stuff as well. I can't remember. Maybe that comes later, but... it does have probably the most famous boss or infamous boss in some senses of this game, which is the big fucking rock dude, the Boulder Geist.
You gotta have a 2 hands and a big head boss. That's the Nintendo rule book.
This is definitely the most complex of the bosses, because not only do you have to smash him, then you have to smash him again with his uvula, and then he just reforms himself for a second.
You've got these bomb boos though that are really fun to pick up and throw at him.
Yeah, the boos that you basically spin near and you attach to their tongue, and you use their tongue to fling them at the enemy.
Yeah, I really like this boss fight. I know it gets a bit tricky, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely one of those that I was scared of when I was younger because it was really hard. They also give you a Luma shop, which another thing in terms of speed is like, I wish that the Luma shop would just be a bit more instant and just give me the thing I want. It's like, hi, that every time you talk to them, Luma B, Luma Bop, welcome to the Luma shop. I'm like, fucking shut up, Luma. Just give me the thing. That was especially bad. Yeah, especially bad when you're doing the Daredevil. Actually, no, it wasn't, because the Daredevil, you don't buy anything because you can't get any more health.
It's banned.
You're not allowed. But I remember when I was younger playing this one and just being like, fucking... I remember that specifically because I said that I voiced all the dialogue when I was doing my Let's Play, so that's just burned into my memory. Luma B, Luma Bop, welcome to the Luma shop, for fuck's sake. But yes.
This is maybe my favorite, if not one of my favorite songs in the whole of Mario Galaxy, is the Ghostly Galaxy theme song. It's so well orchestrated and just sets the tone so nicely for like this Luigi's Mansion style.
Yeah, and it's not that spooky either. Actually, like it's got a bit of a jaunt to it.
Because you're only actually in the mansion for one of these levels, and that's like the Luigi and the Haunted Mansion level, which is you're going up and through the mansion, and you get the obviously like Boo Mario, which is a cool power up.
Yeah, let's talk about Boo Mario because this is kind of where he comes into it. It's fine, I think. I don't think there's anything special about it. It's like you spin to go invisible so you can go through walls. That's kind of
I think it's done more so just because Boo Mario looks so funny and cute and ridiculous, more so than mechanically. But
right, exactly.
It's fun to be able to like float around like a Boo and avoid sun.
like exactly. Don't get destroyed.
And
by
then you've got
light.
like the very spooky sprint. So like it's 3 very different levels in that sense for the 3 main stars.
Yeah, a lot of variety going on there, which was nice. The other levels here are the Boy Base Galaxy, which is a single star one. Maybe it has an extra. Actually, it does have because I actually got the hidden star in this one, the green star, accidentally because I was like, I need to get rid of all the water. I should probably go to this pipe where it looks like it's being sucked into, and then you get sucked in, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually in this other place now, and you go and get a different star than what you originally were intending to. But yeah, this is what I'm talking about, where I'm like, okay, now you have like torpedoes following you underwater, and you don't have a good way to avoid them aside from going up to the surface again. And just keeping track of your air bubbles, like being able to get a new breath of air when you're trying to get down there. All in all, it's actually kind of simple to just knock it down, and then once you knock it down, it's the platforming is kind of fun to get up to the top, but
it's just a traditional get to the top of the tower level, but it's good.
So that's a neat one, and it doesn't introduce much different, but I think it has a very cool. The thing I remember is our Game Dude's review of Mario Galaxy. We use footage of Boy Base Galaxy when we're illustrating how lovely the water looks in the game, because of course that's what we had to talk about. And then actually, this is probably my favorite motion control in the game, is Bubble Breeze Galaxy, which is the level where you have a little kind of icon where your Joy-Con pointer would be, or your Wii remote pointer would be, which is a little kind of bag of air that like puffs out. And Mario is in a bubble, and you just puff him around the stage, and it actually works really well. I think part of it is because you are in a 360 around Mario, and so you're moving the thing with very slight movements of your wrist, and getting out of place isn't really a thing that happens. You don't really have to reset at any point when you're doing this, I found anyway.
It's like they learned it from almost like a DS prototype or something. Like it's a very
it
clear
totally feels like Spirit
do.
Bubbles or something like that on DS, where you're just kind of pushing someone through a thing. It's very, very cool. I actually do really like that one, and I think it has some neat... It's taking an overhead perspective, which is like, again, this game does a lot with perspective in terms of side-scrolling stuff versus big 3D open stuff versus like going underneath and around. Like, that's probably the most variety I've seen in a Mario game of up to this point of like what it could be in terms of not just being a 3D behind-the-back camera type of deal.
Should we talk about the Luma Galaxy for this?
What's the Luma Galaxy?
It's the Drip Drop Galaxy, Giant Eel Outbreak, and it's one of those levels that looks more fun than it is to play because it's one giant globe of water, which looks incredible. There's like sun shining through it, space in the background, and you talk to this old penguin, and he's like, "Yeah, we've got an eel outbreak," and there's like 5-6 eels swimming around the level that you basically just have to collect shells and kill them all. And then you get a star.
Better to get the red shells for those as opposed to the green ones because they home in, of course.
Oh, do you? I forgot that.
Yeah. Well, I used that on the boss. There's a big fucking giant shark boss later on that I...
Yeah, it's like the evolution of this level.
Right. And for that one, I was like, I need the red shells. So, you know, there are green shells around and there are fewer red shells. But if you find the red shells, those are the ones that are much better to use because they... I
agree the swimming mechanics aren't the best, but that boss fight is very cool. Like
it's cool visually, for sure. I won't deny that. Like, I really do like the design of him and the way his bones are all cracked and everything and, like, the red eyes.
Yeah, it's like Dry Bowser before Dry Bowser.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very intimidating. But it is, again, it's an underwater boss, and I'm like, fucking, do we have to do this? At least it's not as bad as cleaning the fucking teeth of that thing in Sunshine, because nothing will ever be that bad. But you
it's
know,
his brother.
It's his brother. Yeah, it's his uncle or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think the boss fight is not particularly memorable. It's the Bowser Jr. in a ship, and you're just throwing shells at his ship to destroy it. It's kind of the same as the Magic Koopa one, but just with Bowser Jr. this time. Not very inspired. The Bedroom Dome, probably one of my favorites overall in the game, I think. This has a really strong selection of levels, starting with Gusty Garden Galaxy, which many people will reference as some of the best music in all of Mario Galaxy. What are your thoughts on that, Bally?
I was going to say that was the original Now You're Playing with Power theme tune, was Gusty Garden Galaxy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, people would recognize that from the original podcast intro.
I think Gusty Garden Galaxy is more pretty and sounds nice than it necessarily is fun to play.
It's not as much depth, I would guess, right? Because it's mainly going to islands, killing piranha plants, and therefore creating vines that you can go to the next one with, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the progression of it.
Here's the mechanic of you're going to fly in the wind on this seed, and they kind of repeat that a few times, and it's cool. It looks nice. But yeah, it's not overly fun to play.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it for the chill vibes, man. That's the thing. It's like it's a really nice one to look at, and it has a very cozy feel. And it's not that tricky.
A lot of chasing bunny rabbits.
Yeah, there's some of that at the end. And then the boss fight is the big mole guy, which is neat as well. You know, I think again, it's not. The thing that Galaxy for me stands out more so than other Mario games is that sense of awe and wonder and beauty, and I think this game, especially with Gusty Garden, it evokes that more so than it does challenge or platforming, right? Like, because there's not a lot of that going on here, but it is just enjoyable to engage with, I found, for the most part. So yeah, I don't think there's much depth to Gusty Garden Galaxy, but I do want to give it a shout out for just being very nice to be in that place. Freeze Flame Galaxy, on the other hand, I think is very neat mechanically, right? Because I
think mechanically one of the best in the whole game, honestly. It's very smart, some of the stuff it's doing.
And they do kind of repeat this again later on with Melty Molten to some degree. Although Melty Molten is much more fire themed generally, there is a bit of ice stuff going on in there at some points, but this one is really this fusion of, okay, you've got this ice thing that's going to turn Mario into solid ice so that he can slide across the fire. One of my favorite moments in the game is that star where you are using the ice flower and refreshing it every time you get to a new platform, and you're sliding across the fire to get to the end. It's really satisfying and very, very well done. So that one is
Freeze
cool.
Flame also has the ice bats and climbing to the top of that ice mountain, which is also very, very fun, very well designed.
Don't know about that. The boss fight is not amazing. It's a little frustrating.
Really weird boss fight. Yeah, weird.
And like especially because one time the final hit you get on him, you hit him and then he doesn't get affected by it because he's like dodged out of the way or something, and then you get hit by his drop down if you're not paying attention enough, which was a little bit annoying. But yeah, I think it's just like, okay, we're gonna fight just a sentient piece of ice, I guess. Like those are the little types of new enemies that get introduced in this game that are not particularly memorable as Mario characters.
Sentient
they're just like
pieces of ice.
Yeah, they're like sentient pieces of rock for the fire guy, sentient pieces of ice, you know. And then you just fight a big one.
I do think the ice skating is very cool. Like that is just a fantastic idea of a power up.
It's just the first idea of having the ice activate on the lava and creating little platforms is cool, but then adding into it the ice skating mechanic on top and the spin pirouette stuff that happens is really really neat.
And the fact that it's taking a classic Mario power up in the fire flower and then doing a cold version of that, and it retains some of that sort of idea of some of its classic idea, in that it's on a timer. So both of these flowers, one cold, one hot, are both on timers, but they both act in very different ways. And then this whole world just showcases different uses of those two flowers. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's a real smoothness to the movement with the ice flower, a real kind of flow that it has that I do wish some of the rest of the game had. I want to come to a comment from Maitreya about movement. They say the main issue is that Mario is really toned down from 64, especially Sunshine. The removal of the dive is the biggest shame, as it feels like Mario's moveset doesn't have much synergy. His actions just don't flow into one another like they did. I understand them toning down Mario due to Galaxy's level design and working around the Wii Remote, but I think they went too far. And I didn't necessarily think they went too far with that. I think part of the reason Mario is slower and he is a little bit more difficult, or like has fewer options, I would say.
Yeah.
Part of it, I was talking to you about this, was you got to remember the Wii and remember how they were trying to, get casual players in the door as much as possible. I think part of it is that desire to make a Mario game that is more approachable to regular people, right? Having single inputs of A is jump, spin the controller is do the spin, and that's just about it. If you want to go further with the long jump, you can figure that out, but I think most casual players probably won't know that.
But even then, it's a long jump followed by a spin jump. That's basically the biggest combo you can more or less do in Mario.
Exactly.
Galaxy,
there's not a lot of acrobatics. There's no fucking like tactics like in Odyssey where you do like hat jump to dive to hat jump to thing. It gets ridiculous in that game, which is amazing. But definitely not the sort of thing a casual player is going to be into. So I think part of it is Nintendo's push for the Blue Ocean market to make Mario Galaxy a more appealing prospect to them. But part of it is also, you're just getting used to going through these levels that are upside down and just...
I think that's a very big part, totally.
Yeah, if you moved with Sunshine speed in some of these areas, it would feel really tricky because you wouldn't like get yourself oriented properly for the most part. You do need to have a bit of a toned down speed in that sense. But I totally understand. Like the lack of some of these moves is a bit of a shame, and it does feel like they've stripped away some of Mario's feel in Galaxy. As a result of that. Cool. Where were we? I think we had
Dusty Dune coming up.
Dusty Dune is the next Galaxy, which is it's okay. I'm not.
Is this the least bad sand level in a Mario?
Probably, probably the least bad sand level in a Mario game.
Of the three that we've played, I do think that sand level in Odyssey is fantastic.
Yes, but it's doing a totally different thing. And this one is definitely the thing I remember the most of this one is that section where you're going around and the sand is pushing you around this kind of circular.
You're collecting the blue
shards for the star, and you're just like going around it non-stop and like spinning.
There's a timed version of that star as well.
Oh, for fuck's sake, man. So yeah, that star is really fun just from a visual perspective, just like the way the sand moves and its warping nature. I really love that stuff. And then there's the one where you're trying to get to the top by doing wall jumps, and that one with tornadoes kind of boosting you up as well. Which is neat. It definitely has some issues near the end of trying to get those jumps perfect, but
there's like one
I remember
where you stomp on a big button that forces a sandcastle to go on the other side, and you have
it's like you go upside down. You're basically on this plane, which the top side and the bottom side of it, and there's these couple of holes that you use to traverse back and forth between them. I remember having trouble with that one when I was younger. This time I had no issue at all. I did it
there's
first time.
Purple coin star in that area as well that's I think might also be timed, which was
good
fun.
Yeah, no, that's definitely tricky for sure. But yeah, I don't know. This one for me has more of the theming of the sand that works well without the frustration of being stuck in sand or being drowned in sand, and I think that's good, right? Because I think
some of that in this level, but it's
there's
easier
some
to
of it,
avoid.
but like that was the core of my issue with the Mario 64 level is like you can do so much, you can get so much progress. One slip and you're just fucking drowning in sand. There's nothing you can do about it.
There's like you're dead quicksand in this level, as well as there being this quicksand is a bit like fudge that you have a chance to jump out of again. Like it doesn't have to just be insta kill sand, right?
Yeah, totally. And then we have Honey Climb Galaxy, which I think is just a spin-off basically of the using the bee costume and just climbing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like, let's take this one mechanic of this costume and then just make a level based on that we can just make a standalone thing. And that's part of why I think Galaxy is so good. It just takes little ideas and just expands on them a bit in their own individual levels.
Yeah, and I think what I'm finding generally is like I think my favorite stars are those just individual ones that pop up in the galaxies.
Because it's in, it's out, it's fresh. You don't have to see it again. It's just, I do like that.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got another Bowser fight at the end.
I was going to say the Luma one for this level is the Big Mouth Galaxy, and it's basically you have to go and retrieve a golden shell.
Yes, this is the one with the two parts of the water where you have to use I think it's a shell to like get from one side to the other.
You can cheat it because you can just go to the side and wall jump.
Do a wall jump? Yes, yeah.
So it's fine. It's on the weaker end, I'd argue.
Right, it's another water level, really, but it has that one cool idea, and then it doesn't really. I don't think that idea gets used again, really.
It's just it's a fetch quest.
Yeah, basically, it's a mini fetch quest. But the Bowser fight here, I can't remember the level for this one, but I think generally the levels leading up to Bowser fights are quite good in Galaxy. There's a good variety.
This one was a lot more two-dimensional, arrows, gravity, which this game has a lot of.
I think this might have the one where you're traveling on that platform and then the arrows are switching around, so you need to get on the right side of the platform in order to... Yeah,
it's a little tricky.
It's a little tricky, but I think it's clever, and I think it works really well, and it does have a good challenge to it. So, but then you fight Bowser, and I think the difference in this fight is he has like two more bursts of those lasers that he does. So like there's 5 instead of 3.
Yeah, it's a very marginal change.
Yes, similar to what 64 does, to be honest, because 64 also does the same thing where you only have to hit him once both times, and then the final one is where it gets much more challenging. Yeah, it's one of those things I think Nintendo need to kind of figure out a bit more of, like, okay, well, maybe let's make it a bit more interesting as we progress through these Bowser fights, not just make them...
Can you remember what Odyssey does for those Bowser?
And Odyssey has the one with the hat, right? You get his hat and it has punching gloves on it.
Yes.
And then you punch him a bunch.
And that fight is repeated 3 times, isn't it?
I think it might be repeated twice. I can't remember, but they definitely haven't gotten away from that yet.
No. There's so many awesome boss fights in between. It doesn't feel as prominent in Odyssey, perhaps. But
and Odyssey is just such a breezy 10 hours of just joy.
It's like for the really casual young players who aren't ever going to beat the game, they need to have a Bowser boss fight as well. There must be some reason behind it.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. Just on the point of linearity, because I think that for a lot of these levels, we haven't really talked about since the B Galaxy any kind of exploration in this game, right? And I think part of that is they want more tightly designed stars that you go from point to point, and part of it is the disjointed nature. But how do you feel about linearity generally in this game? I think I'll kick this off because Rachel had a point about it, and says, I remember the one downside I had was the move away from the more open levels of 64 and Sunshine to the linear galaxies, which with fewer stars means less time spent by comparison. Maybe it's a symptom of every game seemingly being open world these days that makes me favour it more now, but if anything, I prefer Galaxy structure more. It means there's a greater variety of levels, both in different aesthetics and how they play, and more fun one-off ideas like the Flip Switch Galaxy, in place of 100 coin stars that make up the total of 120. There are still the purple coin comet stars, but they feel much less of a chore. The greater variety also means more encouragement to try different levels to reach the required total and beat the game. Unlike Sunshine, forcing you to collect 7 shines in a bad level, looking at you, Pianta Village, in order to move on. Unfortunately, the level design brings me on to my biggest takeaway and disappointment of replaying this game. By the end, I had realised what I thought were my favourite levels and moments from Galaxy must have actually been in Galaxy 2, which by its omission is the biggest problem with the 3D All-Stars collection. It's not really fair to criticise a game for mistaking it for its successor, but it's still where I find myself at. Galaxy 2 also poses a bit more of a challenge, I find, and so that is a bit more engaging, with the original Galaxy, as evident by the number of lives I had by the end, just a bit too easy by comparison. Some good points there, and I think I didn't really think about it, but she's right in terms of you can get 60 stars however you like in this game, really. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much open to you, aside from unlocking you have a number of star gating you from the next levels to unlock, but aside
very
from that,
low numbers to unlock those stars, I found.
Yeah, there were definitely moments where I'd finish a galaxy, go to the next one, and it's like, Mario, we have a signal coming in from the galaxy, there's a boss coming, and I'm like, I just literally entered this new galaxy and already I've unlocked the boss fight because I have enough stars for it.
On the balance between linear and more exploration based and how those have aged, this is maybe it's not controversial, but I think the linear stars have aged way better in Mario Galaxy than the more open stars, where there is a little bit of exploration. And there's not many stars where that's the case. But I just think a game like Mario Odyssey has evolved and improved upon that idea of exploration in relation to platforming in a way that makes a lot of the exploration in all three of the games in this trilogy feel a lot more flat. Whereas I think that when you're talking about the pinnacle of platforming itself, I feel like there's been a more marginal improvement in actual platforming, purely platforming like linear design. That has been like a smaller increase in improvement than I think what Odyssey does for exploration in relation to platforming. It just feels like a much starker jump in that sense that I think made the slower, more exploration-based stars in Galaxy, as few as there are, feel pretty slow and quite flat.
Yeah, definitely. It's for me, I have always stated that I preferred the more linear style of level design from 3D Land and Galaxy 2.
It's no surprise they went to 3D Land and 3D World after these games, right? Was 3D Land before? It was after Galaxy 2, right?
It was after Galaxy 2, yeah.
They did one more roll of the dice with Galaxy in that format, and I think Galaxy 2 already went a little bit less exploration and more linear, and then obviously 3D Land and 3D World are almost entirely linear. That is just kind of what they went for.
Right, because those games really are this junction point between 3D and 2D.
In that sense, this is maybe when you're talking about levels like Beach Bowl Galaxy or the B Galaxy, it's like these are maybe some of the last exploration Mario levels in a 3D setting that you get until you get to Mario Odyssey, arguably. It's
totally.
A big jump.
Yeah. And speaking of the B one, Gold Leaf Galaxy is in the engine room. And this one I don't have... I think I got it mixed up, and this is part of the reason with these like repeated ideas coming through is the level where you have to go up on the platforms where there's rain
this one
clouds.
has all the wood up top that you're platforming around, and you're racing Mario, Shadow Mario, Cosmic Mario, sorry, his name is. Cosmic.
But there's not much else going on in this level. It's fine. It's just to repeat in terms of theme.
I like the autumnal setting. It's
nice.
It's
autumnal.
It's simple, but I like it. Maple Treeway is like one of my favorite Mario Kart Wii tracks, and it's just like this is all about Maple Treeway.
Shout out to Maple Treeway, man.
Love that track.
One of the more interesting levels is the Sea Slide Galaxy. This one, just construction-wise, feels like a race course, and it is a race course because you do a race in it when you're doing the penguins and you're trying to beat them. You do obviously do a lot of underwater stuff here because the first two stars are basically focused on that. But then the third star is where I find it really interesting because this is actually one of the most exploration-focused stars in the game, which is the Silver Stars of Sea Slide, which has you going around all the different parts of the island to find these silver stars that are not hidden necessarily, but they're tricky to get to. They're in high places. They're not just led directly to you in a linear fashion. And I found myself like utilizing, because that level actually has mini star projection points to boost you back to the start so that you can get around it more quickly. It's good. I really like this one.
It's weird because you say it's linear exploration, but ultimately you're exploring in one big donut. So like
this is true.
It's like it's more secretly giving you a linear way of exploring this world in a way that I really liked. And I think that the nature of having just a big donut of water is perfect for like the races and the collecting. This is water. I think this is my favorite water level in the game. It's like water level done right, where
totally, because it always gives you the shell as an option to do these parts, right? You always have the shell to follow Guppy in his rings. You have it to race against the penguins as well, and it is quite thin and not. It's not a big bowl. It is like a race course.
And you're not forced to do those tight turns that I said earlier feel so difficult and like swimming through molasses. Like it's all about the wider turns, racing with shells, and that's where I think the water physics work a bit better.
Totally. I would say it's more non-linear for me just because I didn't find one of them. And I was like, where is it? And I kept wandering around trying to find it. Turns out it was just it was really high up above a tree.
Doing laps.
Yeah, doing laps. It was really high up above a tree, and I was like, oh, for God's sake, that was the one I missed.
That tree's really big, and it's weird.
No, not the big tree. I don't mean the really big tree. I mean just one of the palm trees that's just high up off the ground above it. You need to use the bee costume to get up to it.
Yeah.
And it is neat that you can traverse this level in multiple ways. You can use the bee mushroom to like go over the platforms and go onto the kind of archways, or you can use the underwater shell to like quickly go underwater.
You can complete that silver one with a bee costume without actually touching the water, which is quite clever.
Exactly.
Like, it's very cool.
Yeah. It's neat. So I think that's one of the better levels in the whole game, actually. And then we have probably my favorite level in the game.
I agree. I think I said Freeze Flame before, but I think this actually far surpasses it, honestly.
And I think this game, this level gets a hard time because of the spring mushroom.
I love the spring mushroom.
But I really love Toy Time Galaxy. This is definitely, thematically, it's one of the strongest in the entire game.
Yeah.
And it has some of the most interesting and challenging platforming in the game. And part of that, again, is because the spring mushroom can be a little wonky at times. But when you do know the timing of it and you know how to jump, it's really satisfying, and it does work super well.
Yeah.
So this entire level is just, you've got the big Mecha Bowser that you go and take down, then you have a big Mecha Mario, and there's just a bunch of other stuff with like holes in the ground that you're bouncing over and just getting to places. And I think one of the weaker boss fights generally is like the mole in his little ship that shoots stuff. You fight that mole multiple times across the game, and every time I was like, I feel no need to be threatened by this guy. He's stupidly easy, and you just go above him and just smash down.
I mean, I like that they've just said, here's the same boss fight, but we'll make him more elevated, forcing you to use the spring to jump on him to do the ground. It's simple, but I think it's quite fun because ultimately they are asking you to do a fiddly boss fight while in the spring costume, so they want to make it fairly simple, and I think in that sense it kind of works.
It does kind of work, but I just really love all the different like areas, and this level also has the blue platforms which you can walk on the side of.
Really cool.
And that stuff is really clever when you combine it with some of the like unscrewing nuts and bolts.
These panels.
Panels coming off. Like overall, thematically, cohesively, like upside down stuff. Just this is probably the strongest package overall in the whole of Mario Galaxy.
Yeah, totally agree.
Although, and do you have any misgivings at all with the spring? Because I remember it being frustrating when I was younger. Maybe it's just because I'm better at video games now. I feel more in control.
Yeah, I think we're both better. I really enjoyed it this time round. I never fell off the stage and like, God damn it, that was just because of the spring. Like, there's maybe one or two times I fell off, but it was totally my fault. And it is about just playing it safe with the spring, and it's about realigning your expectations of what Mario can and can't do. I think that's the whole point of the spring, you know. And I think it's just you can't just charge in like you can with another Mario outfit or when he's just vanilla Mario, you know. And I think that's quite fun to play with. Yeah,
for sure. Just excellent level all around. Very good stuff. The other bonus level here is Bonefin, which is what we've already talked about, which is the giant skeleton shark that you have to do underwater, who's a bit of a pain, but again, not too taxing. And then you have a final Bowser Jr. level, which I believe is the refight of Caliente, his spicy return, as it's called.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's an easy boss fight. It's not really that tricky. And I do like that boss fight. It's just very simple. Like, bashing coconuts back at something is just satisfying. It's a real weird, goofy thing. And there's a level in... there's a section as part of the Dusty Dune Galaxy where you have to knock coconuts from one... planet to the other planet and then use those to take out. I really like that. It's cool. An enemy, and that was really neat. So, the Luma. Yeah, the Luma one for this one is called Choosing a Favorite Snack, and it's basically like a race where you can choose to be either Boo Mario or Bee Mario, and then navigate yourself through the same course, because it'll be a mixture of like water and sunlight and things to avoid with either of the costumes, but you have to pick which one you want to, you know, play the course as, which I think is just a fun idea, just evolving on previous mechanics in a nice way. Yeah, absolutely. And then we have the Garden Dome, which is the final one, where we have some tricky stages for sure. Deep Dark Galaxy, Remind me of this one, Bally.
This is maybe the worst galaxy in the game, honestly.
Oh boy, yeah. So what happens in this one? What's the things you remember from it?
It's got the pirate ship with that Kamek fight we were talking about before. It's got
the mole, doesn't it, at the start, where you have to smash his head and use the fire flower to open the gate.
It's got a cool thing where you the timer of the fire flower, in that time while you're using it, you have to catapult between mini planets in order to light up torches. I like that.
And then really one of them like shrinks as well and disappears in the sky.
Yeah.
It's a thing that happens. But then this also has the ice flower, and then using those to jump onto kind of gushing out water parts in order to platform up to the top.
There was a lot of that in Freeze Flame, obviously, as well. And the physics of the spin jump while you're fire or ice Mario are different to the physics of vanilla Mario.
I was just going to say this. It feels much less. It gives you less of a window. It gives you less movement and ability to grab onto something. So when you think you're going to hit a point and you spin, it doesn't actually take you as far as you want it to.
Yeah, so when you're being asked to do some pretty tricky platforming, while Ice Mario in particular, in order to platform up these jets of water that you freeze and jump on, obviously, it really doesn't feel good. And there's an aspect of this galaxy that is doing that, but there's a lot of it in Freeze Flame that hasn't aged anything like as well as I thought it had.
Yeah, it's I think it's just part of the issue with redesigning that moveset. Part of it is like when you're doing the spin jump as the ice skating, it has to feel different, it has to be different, so it can't do the same thing, which is unfortunate, but it does mean that, you know, the end of this game gets a little trickier when you're relying. There does seem to be, especially in Melty Molten as well, this over-reliance on the ice and the fire mushrooms, or power-ups, I should say, which it feels like the depths to which you are able to use these things are being squeezed. Like it just feels like you don't have as much leeway as you would like to, and the challenge comes less from your ability and more from the constraints that they are arbitrarily putting on you, if you know what I mean. There's the Dreadnought Galaxy, which we've kind of discussed a little bit as well, but it is just a bit of a harder version of that previous one. I do like some of the visual stuff going on here. It almost looks like a toy in and of itself, the way it's designed.
Yeah, it's some really cool design. I agree.
But yeah, there's sections where you are on a linear path, and it's you're on a platform, and the platform is moving across a space, and you have to avoid cannons shooting at you as you go. The top guys come back, and you have to kill them. But again, it's just a bit of a more difficult version of that versus Melty Molten, which I have some real bad memories of. Melty Molten, Purple Coin / some late game stuff that is kind of rough.
The thing is about the garden is Deep Dark, Dreadnought, and Melty Molten Galaxy are all 3-star, like more exploration-based areas. Like, not explorations-based is the wrong word, but like they're larger areas and not single one-off galaxies. And it's just kind of them putting in the hardest things of the mechanics you've already learned in the game into 3 sort of finale levels together. And yeah, it doesn't have the same freshness as like.
Right, because a lot of these ideas are just repeated from before.
Yeah, and then obviously they ramp up the difficulty, so you're just kind of like, this doesn't feel as fresh, and it's harder, and I think I'm ready to face Bowser now kind of feeling.
Yeah, I think part of the brilliance of Toy Time Galaxy is it is harder, but it feels so different and new that you are really, pulled along by that factor versus these ones, which feel a bit more frustrating as a result of there not being something else to just keep you there,
like Melty Molten's got the piranha plant coming back again, but on fire. It's like we could have had like a brand new boss for that area or something.
Yeah. So one point that I want to bring up about the visuals is I think part of the marketing of Mario Galaxy was very much built on these moments where Mario is like pushing through the air and things are exploding behind him, and that moment doesn't happen until the second star of Melty Molten, where you are just like going, lava things are going above you, and you're like bursting out, and you're bursting out of a volcano, and things explode as
There's a couple in Dreadnought as well with explosions and things.
Yes, and it's like the camera is Mario's facing the camera as he zooms towards you, essentially. So I do want to kind of talk about the visuals a little bit more. Matraya says an obvious benefit here is the wow of the visuals and the audio that are absolutely wonderful. They may still be the best looking Mario game still. The music is just phenomenal. 64 and Sunshine soundtracks are solid, but Galaxy's gorgeous OST blows them out of the water. It's not just the orchestral scores. The music always fits the atmosphere perfectly, and some of my favourite songs are the more somber ones, like the Rosalina-centered tracks. And yeah, like that, we haven't talked broadly about music, or like individually about music, I should say, on each of these levels, but they each have a different tone to them, and I think the bombastic stuff really comes into the fore when you're having these moments that when Mario's just being shot across lava or shot across places, just exploding with all the star bits, and it feels like the orchestra is just like booming at those moments. But then I do like the really quiet, like kind of like little sounds that happen, especially when you go to the gate level, which is where you get the flying star and all the coins are there, and that entire level evokes that kind of peaceful music of Mario Galaxy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think there's just so much around the music that is, like I said at the start, some of the best aspects that have aged the best in this game. It's like very impressive, and it is that combination of, it's not just a big orchestra, bombastic every time. It's that combined with the small undertones that you were talking about. Like it's very impressive.
Absolutely, yeah. And then we have Matt Splatter Galaxy, Matt Splatter, I should say, which is one of the trickiest ones, I would say. Just
it's cool.
Especially the spring at the end, where you're being Spring Mario, and that one I died on like at least 5 times this time, and I was like, every time I was like I got to this one point that's literally right at the end, I think 3 times in a row, and fucked it up 3 times in a row, and got really frustrated by it. But overall, I think the idea is very sound. Like it's again, like when we talk about freshness overcoming difficulty, Matter Splatter is a good example of that being a really late game, really difficult star. But you kind of go along with it because it's unlike something you've really seen thus far in the game.
Yeah.
So that is neat, and I think they kind of expand on that later in Galaxy 2 with Yoshi and some of that stuff where he has a fruit that like shows light in places versus where light doesn't exist. That stuff will get iterated on.
Yeah,
but
it's cool. Did you do Star Bunnies in the Snow?
What is that? The bonus one, the Luma one?
No, yeah, it's the Luma one for Garden. Sorry, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's got to chase 3 bunnies, and 3 of them are hiding, and it's a time. I think like a 2 or 3 minute time limit. And yeah, 3 of them are hiding in, like, one's in the snowman, one's in some hole or something, one's in the grass, and you have to just use different power-ups to get the 3 different bunnies, and there's like melting snow and flip switches, and all used in combination, which is pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't think I did do that one. I think I had enough Luma star bits at that point maybe to do it, but yeah, the final level actually. I think it's important to talk about this level because this whole level is really cool, and it's probably my favorite Bowser level in a Mario game overall. I haven't played other ones in a while, so
not the wooden boat in the lava and sunshine.
Moving on. So this one is really, it just throws everything at you, and it also has new ideas, like the spotlights on the wall where Mario can walk on. We've obviously seen that type of thing already in the game, but I think it's just a really clever implementation of it, and it just feels very fresh and different. It's got a bunch of the arrow stuff in it, I think, and some like fire bars and things that you're dodging around. Like the construction of all these Bowser levels are actually not that far off from the original Mario 64 very first Bowser level. You know, like they have a construction that feels more like a side-scrolling platformer than it does a 3D Mario game.
And like stylistically, I think this feels like if you took one of those levels from 64, tore it apart, and then stuck it in space with gravity, it looks like bricks and mortar literally taken from that level and then put in place here with like the checkered flooring and the green carpet and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
which is
totally
really cool. Really evokes an evolution of 64 in that sense, which is what obviously I think the whole game's going for.
Right. Yeah. Really, it really is. So, and then you fight Bowser 3 times. I do appreciate that the kind of the differences in the mechanics, the slight differences. He turns into a boulder, and you're very used to at that point, taking the right timing to spin at the red point of the boulder to knock him out. And then the second one is using the bouncy. I don't know what you
are they plants? Are they? Yeah. They are weird, but they have such a nice look to them that it makes you want to touch it, like it's really like made of actual rubber or something.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you're not in the way when they come back, because they can, hit Mario in the face if he doesn't move out the way in time. So that's definitely a thing that I remember doing. But I do appreciate that it's not just the same thing 3 times. Doing the same exact mechanics. Evolution. Yeah, they add these 2 new elements, and then the final one is like the hardest version of that boss fight you've already done, essentially. And yeah, it can get tricky. I think maybe I got lucky or something, or maybe I just had my muscle memory locked in at that point. I was able to do it first time, but it's does it take you back to the very beginning if you die, or does it just take you back to the start of each individual stage?
Very beginning.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah, you gotta go through the 3 phases again.
Well, that and that's it, and then you beat Bowser. And that's it. And then there's a weird cutscene, and Mario says, "Hello, New Galaxy," and and we're back to the beginning again. The beginning of this.
They had to have a story that played with ideas of Big Bang and time and space, and they really go for it in this finale. It's just like, wow, okay.
It's very over the top, and I don't know. I think like this is the last Mario game where story becomes a big focus. There's some of it in Odyssey, but like really, I don't know. Like especially after the disaster of Sunshine, it's just kind of like I don't care. And there's people on the internet like Arlo who are like, I know you enjoy story in games, by the way, but I think he's like another level of ridiculous where he's like, yeah, but what if this game had a story? What if Mario had a real? And I'm like, who fucking cares? Frankly, like that's not what these games are, and they never will be that. And I think like it's nice framing to have, okay, this is kind of the setup, but that's not what the video game is.
So what are they going to do for the film then, MBZ?
Yeah, of course, the film with all those great characters.
You're going to have a story for that. It can't just be platforms there.
I mean, I would watch it.
What if it was just one long Let's Play of Mario?
Yeah.
Platforming his way.
The Mario film is just Miyamoto's Let's Play. Yeah. That's exactly what it turns out to be. That would be fantastic. But yeah, that's it. That's Mario Galaxy, Bally. We've got some closing thoughts here from some folks. Matriah says, overall, Galaxy is pretty fantastic and my favourite of the trilogy, but I have some fairly large issues that hold the game back from standing with my personal greats. It's so incredibly innovative, and I think the game that Nintendo forgot about managed to refine this formula and expand on what Galaxy did so well. Of course, which shall not be named Galaxy 2. Even if it doesn't resolve some of my larger issues with the original. The 3D Marios are fun to talk about in general, as I think you could genuinely argue any of them in any order depending on what you value. They all do something the best and something the worst. And yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think replaying this game has put into perspective, this is a fantastic game. I no longer think it's an unbridled masterpiece. And I think just part of that is when you dig into the different stars and you dig into like how many of them feel a bit rough and don't quite hold up mechanically to this day. That luster, that kind of like shock of the first time you play Galaxy, it's not there in the same way.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think before playing this 3D collection, I had very clearly in my mind Galaxy was the best of the 3 by some distance. I think I probably preferred Sunshine next, and then 64 for me was just not a very good game in my mind in the large part. And I think playing this trilogy has squished the 3 together a lot more. I think Sunshine is more or less what I expected in the middle there, and I think Galaxy is maybe not quite as incredible and, as you say, as much of a masterpiece as it was in my mind, and is maybe closer to Sunshine in that aspect. But likewise, I think 64 held up quite a bit better than I thought it would in my mind, and is likewise a bit closer. So I think my order is still the same. I still think Galaxy is probably the best of the 3 games. I think my second favorite would be Sunshine, and 64 is my third favorite, but it's a lot closer in my mind having played this collection than it was before.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're more of a flat line than I originally thought. And it's weird. I think 64 is both better and worse than I remember it, There are elements that are just like, wow, Mario really feels fantastic in this game. but it also has a lot of problems that I think more people are kind of coming to the realization of now, versus Sunshine, which still a fucking mess, but I think I have turned a little of a corner on Sunshine in terms of, like, it is fun to control still, and it has a lot of flexibility in its movement, and, you know, it's ultimately the most fun to watch or stream, which is a separate thing entirely, but it just has, because of its ridiculous just ability to create stupid moments that you wouldn't see in any other Mario game, right? Like, just those things that just feel like it's running away from you, and then somehow you pull it out just with some strangeness that happens to do with the physics or the platforming. And then Galaxy, still fantastic, but down a peg a bit, I think, for me. So, it's been a great journey to go through all of these. Let's get final thoughts from Rachel, who has got the final thought pretty much on every one of these episodes. And says, I got every star twice and I still love this game. The music will never stop me wishing that I picked up the Club Nintendo CD when I had the chance, which, by the way, I think both of us own that, right? That Galaxy CD?
Yeah, we've got that Mario Galaxy CD.
Yes, I got that when that was a reward. And when you consider such sounds were originally coming from a Wii, it's possibly still this game's jewel in its crown. The running around in Galaxy games is second to none for me. Even without an objective or a star to collect, I would frequently just long jump around planets to see how far Mario could go, almost launching him into orbit before gravity brought him back down, as though instead of rockets, all NASA had was a portly Italian plumber. The 2D areas, though clearly an improved idea upon in Odyssey, are still some of my favourite levels in all of Mario, utilising gravity switching that could only make sense in a Galaxy game to feel completely unique, but also comfortable and familiar at the same time. It's Mario, Jim, but not as we know it. In summary, Super Mario Galaxy is still the best game in the 3D All-Stars collection, as well as my favourite of the three, but that's only because Galaxy 2 isn't included. Galaxy 2 is my real 10 out of 10 favourite Mario game. Can't wait to pay 50 quid to play that again on the Switch too.
It's happening. You know it's happening.
It's happening. I don't know, man. You know, they did say, you remember with Mario Maker 2, they were like styles, plural, and then nothing fucking happened with that shit, so... Thanks, Nintendo. Who knows if they will give us Galaxy 2. But
we should play Mario Galaxy 2 because, for me, this collection cemented in my mind that Odyssey is my favourite 3D Mario. And I know that for you, Galaxy 2 is that Mario. And I'm intrigued to see what you would think of Galaxy 2.
Well, I mean, I'm weird. My favourite is 3D Land, but that's just because I'm strange.
If we're counting that as 3D Mario,
yes.
Sure. But
yeah.
Of the more traditional 3D Marios, I think it'd be good for both of us to play Galaxy 2 again.
Just, Nintendo will put it out. They have to, right? Like, I really do think that they will release it. They will put Galaxy 2 on a Switch at some point. The question is when and how. Like, does it become when we get to March 31st of this year, do they just reverse and say, oh, actually, we were lying. What we meant was this entire collection is going away, but what we really meant is they're all individually now on the eShop. And does that mean and now they're all individually, now we put Galaxy 2 on the eShop?
It's really tricky because ultimately they have got the sales they probably wanted for 3D Collection. I believe it sold very well, and whether that's through people being scared that it was going to be taken away again, like they said, or because people just wanted to play 3D Mario, I don't know. But if Nintendo go back on that, how often in the future when they say, oh yeah, limited time only, will people be like, yeah, I'm not going to buy it, because they're lying. It's not actually going to be limited time. Like, how many times can a boy call wolf, before people think, Nintendo just liars,
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well, there you go. That's it. That's our end of our celebration of 3D Mario. I hope I will never have to talk about Mario Sunshine again in the history of my life. But, stranger things have happened. And maybe one day, they'll make a sequel, Sunshine 2. Bally, what are the odds on Sunshine 2 ever being announced? Sunshine
2. I think the odds of a Sunshine reference, if not Kingdom in Odyssey 2, are probably fairly decent. So I think
probably
that would be
I would imagine we'd go to Delfino in Odyssey 2, right?
That would be my highest hope. And let's see if Odyssey 2 can come out this year, because I'm pretty confident that game is going to be a thing. Whether it's this year or next year, who knows, but we'll see.
The thing is, Mario Galaxy is over a decade old. I think it's 14 years, almost 13, 14 years old at this point. And, that's a long time. People who were kids like us at the time, are now adults. And the thing with nostalgia is that's a pretty significant amount of time that has passed do Nintendo have a Galaxy thing in Odyssey 2 that's a nostalgic thing?
Yeah, I think
for
they might
people?
do. They might have a little reference to all the games. To be honest, like Peach's Castle might have just been the start. Just
potentially.
Yeah, I'd really like that.
That'd be great. But we'll see. If Nintendo even announce Odyssey 2 this year, who knows? That would be very cool, and I'm sure we will talk about it when it happens. But that's going to close us out for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening to our celebration of Mario. Thanks to everybody who wrote in for all of these episodes. Really nice to see that. And we'll these all were kind of secret backlog clubs in a way, like in some sense.
It's like one of our biggest projects yet, hasn't it?
Yeah,
we're going to play all
definitely.
3 games in the 3D.
Yeah, for sure. And I enjoyed doing it. I'm glad that we now have it in the archive of like a real deep dive on all of these games. It's very cool to have because they are like some of the most significant games that Nintendo have made. And I think it's important to kind of dig into that history and talk about them and all of our thoughts. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm going to close the show out now by talking about some things that you can go find about us on the internet and other things we have planned and all that other kind of stuff. If you'd like to support us, you can support us at Patreon, patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife, where we would like to thank some of our supporters, Bally.
Yes, thank you to our $10 tier patrons. They are Zach S., Atari Alex, Thomas, Matthew, and my fiancée Caroline. Thank you all for your support. We just put out our first episode of This Nintendo Life for 2021, which you can listen to for a single $1. That show is available, and we did our predictions on Nintendo consoles for the year ahead. I don't know why we're doing predictions in this climate, but who knows? It's a fun thing to do. So if you want to listen to that, you can listen to all episodes of This Nintendo Life. I think that's now 7 episodes you can listen to for a single $1. We'd hugely appreciate your support.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find our show all over the place on the internet. You can follow the podcast Twitter, which is at TNL Podcast. Has links to our Discord, to our YouTube channel, all that stuff and updates. You can follow me at LordNBZ, where I basically just become a Judgment fan account at this point in time. I mean, I posted a video yesterday of Yagami backflipping a grenade and kicking it into some guys, and it's just this game is fucking amazing. He fucking rode on a skateboard and kicked a guy in the face. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, if you want to check that out, follow me at LordNBZ. Bally, how are you doing? What's going on Twitter for you?
I'm on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN 91, and I have not been tweeting much. I need to find some things to tweet about. I don't know. Who knows?
Just tweet about anything, Bally,
I might just start a food Instagram or something. I don't know. I'm in the mood.
You know what? You do a lot of cooking. You should do that. Get your
cooking.
Get your Foodstagram going, and we'll promote that when that happens. Yes, that'll do us for that stuff. If you want to find the show, you can find us all over the internet on any podcasting app of your choice. Please do review us on iTunes if possible. That's the best way to let other people know about it if you enjoy the show, and we'll read some of those when they come in. But yeah, I think that just about does it. Any other thoughts, Bally, at the end? Have I forgotten anything?
There's always Cyber Shadow coming out. We might have played a bit of that by next time. So that'll be fun.
I think that'll be enjoyable. So the new releases,
first game of the year.
Yeah, the new releases are coming, and we got a release date for Pokemon Snap, Bally. That's fun.
Very exciting.
Looking forward to that at the end of April, and hopefully there'll be some other stuff scattered in there in between.
But Bowser now has a new Giga form.
Oh yeah, the 3D world thing, man. So much stuff going on. I really want to play that, but I do not want to pay another 50 quid to buy that game again.
Standalone as well as it's just.
Nintendo, why do you do this to us? Your most loyal, ardent Wii U fans. You're just putting us in the mud, but you know. That's most of the people who own Wii U's are going to buy that game again. Yeah. I think we just refuse because we're just very stubborn.
It's the sort of thing that I reckon if that was like a PlayStation game, they'd make it standalone. You know, it's a very Nintendo thing to do to like stick it inside something else.
Well, it's just an incentive, right? It's an incentive for you to buy the whole thing again. That's why they do it.
Do we ever get rewarded for buying a Wii U?
No, never. We'll never. Our reward was playing Mario Maker in its correct form.
Yes.
You know, like the truest version of Mario Maker.
And playing a bunch of fantastic games at the time they came out.
Exactly. Being on the ground floor for Splatoon, man. That was a thing.
Tropical Freeze, 3D World.
Yeah.
Star Fox Zero.
Tokyo Mirage Session Sharp FE. All the classics. Anyway, that is going to close us out for the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you very soon. Bye-bye, folks. The musical interlude used on today's show was Good Egg Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy. Copyright Nintendo 2007.